for backflow vents. Hello? Can you guys hear me?
This is Tanya. I can hear you.
Okay, yeah, I can hear you loud and clear too.
But yeah, I don't know if the room hears us.
I'll text them, John, right?
Hey,
Can you
Mayor,
hear us now?
can you guys hear us from the room?
Yeah.
Great. We can hear you as well.
Awesome. All right. Well, do you have a quorum? Tanya's on. Do you guys see Tanya?
Yes, we see her. I just haven't been able to hear her yet.
Okay, her and I just talked to each other. No problem. There a minute ago. Oh, and then do you have, how many folks are in the room?
Everybody else is in the room.
All right, so we can start the meeting either way. So I want to call to order the regular BOT meeting at 7:01 on November 12th, 2024. When you're ready, Macy, please take the roll.
Thank you. Mayor Billy,
I'm here.
Mayor Pro Tem Sterling,
Here.
Trustee Corvalon.
Can you hear me, Tanya? Can you talk to me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Trustee Larson.
Here.
Trustee Maris.
Here.
Trustee Miller.
Here.
And Trustee Ty.
Here.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. I appreciate it. With that, we'll just go right into the consent agenda. We have 5 items. If any questions on these items should be directed to John or Macy.
I moved to approve the consent agenda. Second.
Cool. We have a motion in a second. Go ahead, Macy.
Hold on, I have a quick question.
Yep. Oh, yep.
Regarding the charging, the smart communities, like that application, if we can't hold to doing 2 chargers per year, what's the consequence?
I don't think there's anything with that. I think we'd bring forward other grant applications for you. This just gets us into their technical support program so that we can access the resources.
Okay, so as long as there's, like, we don't hit one of those things, we're
Yeah.
not going to get dinged on anything.
I'll double check and make sure, but I don't think there's any consequence.
Okay. So if we approve tonight and there is a consequence, we can hopefully revoke.
Is this for the letter for the EV?
Yes.
This is for it. Okay. Yeah, so there's no consequences. This is kind of like Soul Smart, where we can get awards and they really help us with getting resources. It's just something that'll help us kind of like if we need to change code language around it, things like that. They'll show us what other communities are doing. But there's no harm if we don't reach something. Cass and I just think it'll be a really good resource to make sure we're staying on track.
Okay, thanks, Brett. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm good, Mayor Billy. We can move forward.
Okay, cool. We got a motion, a second, and an answered question, Macy.
Mayor Pro Tem Sterling,
Yes.
Trustee Larson.
Yes.
Trustee Maris.
Yes.
Mayor Billy.
Yes.
Trustee Ty.
Yes.
Trustee Corvalon.
Tanya,
Yes. Sorry, I was muted. Sorry.
And Trustee Miller.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion's approved.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate that. With that, we'll go into our first information item of the evening on the Metro Football Funds 2024 disbursements. Nikki Dunn.
Mayor and trustees, Nikki has got a personal situation that she's dealing with this evening, so I'm going to go ahead and pinch hit here. As you know, we had some funding from the Metropolitan Football Funds from the sale of the Broncos team that were designated to support local programming. And we were running a mini grant program that I think you approved, I believe in June, right before I got here, for that application. We've now had all of that application has gone through and there applicants and those awards have been made. Nikki was directed to go ahead and run the program and do that. I have attached to her staff report the applications we received. All of the applicants that applied except for one were awarded, and the only reason the one wasn't awarded is it didn't fit with the criteria for the program that was directly related to providing youth programming. We do have a small remainder of funding left that we could run a second round of this, and I think what we could do is tell the applicant that wasn't awarded and publish this again in a similar fashion to say that those funds are available. So with that said, if you guys have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer.
Quick question. Why is this an informational item and not an action item?
because Nikki was directed and given the authority to disperse the funds in the initial meeting, is my understanding. It was before I was here, but that's what the direction sounded like it was.
But so it's just informing us.
Yeah, that the funds have been awarded.
Okay, and so she's going to go ahead and take the action to actually disperse them?
Yeah, that was given, I think, in the original setup of this program back in, I believe, in June.
Yeah, because at this point, I'm just like, why don't we just go and, disperse these funds and
Yeah.
make sure that
They
they
are
get
being
into
dispersed, yes.
Right,
Okay.
correct. We just wanted to give you an update on what happened and how it went down.
Got it.
Thank you for
Okay.
that update.
Then any discussion?
Yeah, clarifying questions from the trustees.
I have a question about the remaining funds. So other groups could apply for them in 2025?
Yes, I think what we need to do is bring back this as a second round program aim for you guys to give us a nod of 4 on or approval for running that second round. And we could do that pretty quickly, I think.
I'm carrying,
Go
carrying, over- excuse me, sorry. I'm carrying over $8,700 of the 21,000 that we received into 2025.
Okay, so it would have to be a 2025 initiative if you're carrying it over. Okay.
What was the criteria that one of the groups didn't make it? What was the one that, why?
Teens Inc. was trying to purchase a vehicle that they
Mhm.
could use for transportation purposes, and this program was directly for youth funding for sports or other activities similar.
Okay, great, thanks.
Right, correct.
Okay. Other clarifying questions? Hearing none. Anything else you need to say, John, to kind of wrap this up or to give us a little more
No,
wrap up of this?
we will bring a second round of this back for your approval, and we'll do that probably in the beginning of 2025.
Okay, thanks. Look forward to that. All right, with that, we'll go to the fee schedule discussion. Well, again, an information item, the fee schedule update, Rita and John.
Mayor and trustees, every year the staff does a review of the town's fee schedule to make sure that it is aligned with the costs and town goals, the costs that we have of running programs and issuing licensure and all that kind of thing. And we have completed that work and are bringing this forward as an information item. You would be taking action on this at your next meeting, but we wanted to bring this forward first in case you had questions or any adjustments that you might want to make. This year's schedule does include a proposed increase of 4% for sewer rates and 5% for water rates, which are basically based on inflation in the previous water and wastewater rate study that was done by Raftellus a few years ago. As you know, we've got a new water and wastewater rate study that is being completed, and we anticipate that being done early in the new year. But this is in line with what had previously been discussed. There is something that needs to happen before the end of the year as well. We would like to bring forward an ordinance for consideration that will update Chapter 6 of the Municipal Code. This will just make sure that both Chapter 6 and the fee schedule are aligned. So essentially, Chapter 6 will reference the fees in the fee schedule, and then just making sure that we kind of establish consistency with the practices we have in terms related to like business licensure and things like that and late fees and all that kind of thing. So what you have before you tonight is the fee schedule just for initial review. We would like to bring this for adoption on December 3rd. On December 3rd. I said the 19th, but it's the 3rd. We just wanted to get some input on these proposed utility rate increases and any other adjustments that are in that fee schedule. One additional item that I'd like to bring forward is the community center has requested something, it just came up today, but essentially what they'd like to do is be able to offer a veterans pass that would be available to veterans in our community so that they could work out at the community center at either a reduced or free rate. And that's something that I don't have a price for you on, but we just wanted to gauge your interest in that.
I have prices in case you're interested, but it would be for veterans and the military. is what they would like to offer.
Sure, go for it, Rita. What's the price?
Okay, are you ready? So go over to the community center. Is that up on the screen, the fee schedule? Okay. And I can start talking. I mean, so for drop-in visit, adults, let's see, would pay $7. They're recommending $5 for the veterans and the military. Okay. For the 10 visit punch card, adults would pay $48. They're wanting to offer it for $38. The monthly continual membership for active military and veterans, $28 versus $38. The 3-month prepaid for $84 instead of $114. And the last one is the annual membership, $308 versus $418.
So matching the senior rate.
You're right. Which, that's, I think, pretty fair, but
And that was the request that came from the community?
from the community center staff, correct. And so it's not in your fee schedule yet, but I would insert that for next meeting.
Nice, thank you.
Thanks for those details. Any clarifying questions for Rita or John?
Is the removal of the
Go ahead.
paving machine from the town labor, is that just because we don't have a paving machine, or is it we're not?
It's gone.
It's gone.
Did you guys see the board space that came for the Zamboni and all that? That's,
Yeah.
a little different, but
Well,
just
I
wanted to
was
point,
curious, how many requests have we gotten for that? And-
I would need to refer to Nikki on that.
I think they used to have a more robust program for those advertisements, and I
Okay.
think that's something she'd just like to start again, so.
I got it, okay. Yeah, that was actually my one
I
question.
know.
Thank you, Rita. I was like, oh, we should take out an ad. Who's at your BOT?
I'm unclear. What was it specifically you were, you had the visual up there earlier and then lost it. What was it specifically you were talking about? I heard you say Zamboni.
Yeah,
not
we
a
were,
paver.
yeah, the board space advertising and the Zamboni advertising that is new this,
Oh. Got it. Okay, sorry. Now it all makes sense. Sorry.
Can I just ask a clarifying question? So the rate study, the new rate study will come out in January, and is that supposed, or early in the year, and is that supposed to help us figure out our future, like 2020?
Yeah. What it does is it contemplates all of the capital improvements that need to happen in the system and operations and maintenance of our system, and then kind of looks at the total replacement cost of our system, which is around $52 million. And so what it does is it has like 3 models essentially. So it has one where we fund that entirely based on fees from users, because it's a Tabor it's like an enterprise fund, so it needs to be run more like a business than a government. So it just, revenues have to match expenditures, ratepayers have to pay for the cost of the system. So there's one model where it's all based on that fee. There's another model where it's based on fees and debt, and then another model where it's based on fees, debt, and grants. And based on those models, what we need to do is bring that forward to you and identify how you want to structure the rates, because that'll dictate how we do those capital projects in the future. And so what Andrew has been working on pretty hard over the course of this year, and a little bit, like really honestly all the time, is our water model, which kind of talks about our system and these improvements that we have to make. He had discussed some of those capital improvements, like the sewer bursting project we talked about for next year, an eventual water plant expansion, things like that, our water tanks, all that kind of thing. And so what it basically does is identify those projects that have to happen in the next 10 years and talks about models about how we would pay for it. And then it identifies what the rates would need to be so that we have the right amount of, so the revenue is right for whatever that model is essentially. And that's kind of what it'll do. We were hoping to have that done tonight, but the consultant is not quite done with the work yet. So we'll bring that forward, I'm thinking, in the beginning of January. But this one, he's going to contemplate these raises if you guys agree to make them. They're what was in the previous study. And while they are not the most updated numbers, they are what the board previously agreed on, and they'll be factored into any future recommended increases that they have. And I think that that's the other thing we can talk about is when that happens is how we can support with grants and keep those costs as low as humanly possible.
Thank you.
John, this is Tanya. How is our model now, or is our model debt, fees, and grants?
I think so. And I think it might be not as grant dependent as we would like it to be. We really want to try to start leveraging dollars in water and wastewater lands. That's the easiest dollars to get from the state, essentially. And there's a couple different models for that, but I think we have 3 distinct models in this new one that you'll see, where one has got a good deal of grant funding contemplated.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I just don't see the community supporting rates going up much more than they have been, nor do I see a lot of development occurring in our community that like we want it to happen with these kind of PIF fees. So I think the high rates are going to become a problem for us, especially in terms of attracting developers. And I'm curious as to PIF fees in other towns, maybe at the next meeting, if you could let us know how we stand. What percentage are our rates in? Are we in the top 10% of high rates, or are we smack in the middle? It would just be nice to know.
Okay, I've got that on my list.
Thank you so much.
Any other clarifying questions for this? Rita or John?
Well, I also
Yes,
want to add, I'm in favor of the veteran discount for the.
Can't do.
This is a information item tonight, so we just need any direction that you'd like to give us on how we should structure this to bring it back to you for official approval, which will come as a part of the budget approval that we do on the 3rd.
It looks fine to me, and also in agreement with the veteran. So that's me. I'd have a nod.
Agreed.
Yeah, I nod. Couple more nods in the room, or Tanya?
Yeah, we've got more than 4 nods.
Great.
Nods all
Okay.
around.
I had a silent nod, sorry.
It was a nod party.
I love it. All right. Thank you. Well, with that, we'll go to our my one and only action item tonight, which is our contract with our water lawyer. So resolution authorizing me, Mayor Billy, to sign a contract with Aaron Ladd, our water lawyer attorney, at his new firm. I assume this is John. Well, Jennifer's not present online or in person. She reviewed this with John and me today. John, you want to talk about it?
Sure. Our water attorney is named Aaron Ladd, and he has recently moved to a new firm. And we needed to make a decision about whether to stick with his services. He's been here for about a decade, or to continue on with a different attorney. And I think the decision was made to stay with Aaron. So he has provided us with a proposed contract that we need to work on. And I think there's a couple things we're just kind of working out the details to make sure we know what we're being charged, which is basically being charged on tenths of the hour is how that'll work, so that you can kind of control costs a little bit, and what his final hourly rate will be. And so we've been working that through with Jennifer. I think we're very close to having kind of the details wrapped up. And what you have before you is a resolution that just, as Mayor Billy said, gives him the ability to sign that contract and to work with Attorney Madsen and myself to get that contract in final shape so that we can move forward with him as our attorney, our water attorney in the future. So there is in your packet, there's a move for approval and a move to deny this resolution that we would use to execute those legal services if you do choose to approve them.
I move to approve resolution 2024-39, delegating authority to the mayor to execute legal services.
Oh, hold on. We got to do
Pizza.
public comment. Sorry.
Need to take public comment. Sorry, I was waiting for Mayor Billy to pop in here.
Thanks for catching
Yeah,
me.
sorry.
Okay.
I was just finishing packing up my dinner. I had your way.
I appreciate your initiative, though. Okay.
Yes, definitely. And
That's okay. Go ahead,
yes.
Mayor Billy.
I'd like to open for public comments. First we'll go online because I can see that. Anyone online have a public comment on this contract resolution for me to sign the contract with the water lawyer? I don't see any hands on my end. Macy, do you see any hands raised?
I do
No.
not.
Okay. Is there anyone in the room?
A couple of fellas, but I don't think they care. Oh, you care?
Okay.
No, they don't care.
Well, thank you. Thanks for being here, fellas. And with that, we can bring it back to the board for final discussion and a motion.
Luke?
All right. Now I move to approve resolution 2024-39, delegating authority to the mayor to execute legal services agreement with Aaron Ladd of Dixon Wright for water loss services.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? If not, Macy?
All right. Trustee Miller,
Yes.
Trustee Ty,
Yes.
Trustee Larson,
Yes.
Mayor Billy,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Sterling,
Yes.
Trustee Maris,
Yes.
and Trustee Corvalon.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The motion's approved.
Thank you. Well, that will go into our one discussion item of the night, the budget, 2025 budget presentation starring Rita and John and all the other staff.
All right, well, Mayor and Board, this is our final draft budget presentation before you have your hearing on the 19th. And we are very excited to be moving this across the finish line with you all. Tonight, you're going to get a more detailed version of what you had at our work session. We're going to present the detail of funds to you, and the rest of the information is relatively stable. So I'm going to let Rita take over from this point, and you can just kind of guide me along here.
Okay, sounds good. All right, let's go to sales tax revenue. Again, nothing has changed here since our last meeting. Therefore, staff recommends maintaining the 25 budgeted amount at the 24 level. Let's move on to property taxes. Again, here, no changes to the property tax revenue. The preliminary estimated revenue for 2025 is $730,000, which is a slight increase over the 24 revenue. Next slide. All right, general fund. So I won't be going into as much detail as during our last meeting, but we'll do so during our budget hearing next week. So this slide includes extra duty traffic revenue and expenditures. The biggest change since our last meeting in the general fund for this slide is I reduced the PD revenue to $164,930, highlighted in pink, which includes an estimate of $115,000 for extra duty traffic, plus $43,000 for net deputies per the Sergeant Jen's estimate, and increased expenditures to $1,309,417, which is an increase of the $62,000 for extra duty traffic expenses. The change in net assets during last meeting was a decrease of $456,000, and with the changes that were made, the change in net assets is now a decrease of $565,563.
The screen moved forward, and I think that you're still on the other one, right?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Yep,
definitely.
there we go.
Okay, so that is mainly due to the overall adjustment made for the PD in the amount of $104,000. There were some other minor adjustments in the general fund, which are listed in the detailed information that was emailed to you. So basically, really, it's the change between the revenue that I had made and the increase in expenditures for the extra duty traffic. Next slide. So this scenario excludes extra duty traffic revenue and expenditures. Therefore, all you're seeing under revenue for law enforcement is $49,930, which includes the estimate again that Sergeant Jen had given us in the amount of $43,000 for net deputies, plus some smaller non-traffic revenue items. Expenditures in the amount of $1,247,417 has not changed since our last meeting. The change in net assets during last meeting was a decrease again of the $456,000, and is now obviously a decrease of $618,563, which is mainly due to the overall adjustments made for PD in the amount of $157,000. Next slide.
So here, we've got a couple of things we wanted to ask. And the first one is, Rita has kind of put together these two models, one with extra duty and expenses and revenues in 2025, and one without. And we need to decide which model we want to go with there, if we want to have the extra duty or not. The second question is there any changes that you would like to make to this general fund budget for 2025? We have kind of made some of the initial expenditure cuts that we can. The next level of expenditure cuts that we could make are going to be more significant, but there are things we could talk about. So we want to make sure that we have that conversation if necessary. And then the final question would be, would you like to go with the 100% BCSO contract or the 50%? There is a third option here that Rita and I have been discussing, and that could be, we could look at trying to do like the 50% contract, but then also contract for extra duty shifts. The problem is with extra duty shifts, you know, it depends on somebody taking the shift, but we may be able to make up some of the gap that way using extra duty in 2025 as we kind of figure out how to stabilize this long term. And so there is a third option there potentially that we could talk about. And we have briefly talked about that with the sheriff's office. And we just need to figure out what that would look like if you want to do that.
What's the cost difference?
So I want to, yes, I want to tell you about that. So that if we were to go to the 50%, which is $168,000 reduction, right? And would up extra duty traffic by double of what's already in there, meaning add $115,000 for revenue, add $62,000 for expenditures, which is a net increase of $53,000. The 168 plus the 63 is at $221,000 that we could decrease the change in net assets from $565 to $344,000. That's another option.
Say that last sentence just one more time. It was what was the
So
difference?
if you use the 168,000, that would be the reduction, plus the 53,000 net difference between the revenue and the expenditure.
Mm-hmm.
The two of them added together is 221,000 that we could decrease the change in net assets by.
So it would go from 618 down to roughly 400.
It would be, this would be scenario one.
We would be scenario one.
so
Right,
down to
because
like
that's
300,000.
all from 565, yes,
565 minus the 218,
Yes.
so down to 250. 350. Yeah.
down
Math.
to 344, yes.
344.
Yes, and
But
you know,
that-
I mean, right now it's about, they sign up for about 8 days per month is what we've been doing. So that would be about 16 days per month, give or take. But like John said, will there be people signing up? Maybe, maybe not, you know.
And-
But the thing is, if they don't sign up, we don't pay them, right?
Right.
So,
And we still need to confirm with the sheriff's office that this model will work. We think
Right.
it will, but we just gotta, if that's what you guys would like to do, we'd have a little bit of talks to do.
but that's,
That-
you know.
In that 50% model, does that mean we keep Jennifer full-time, or does she go down to part-time on the
Yes.
50% model?
Can you
We
skip
keep
to
her,
the slide
and then-
'cause it's in there? There it is.
Thank you.
Right, we keep the sergeant and we just go to one full-time versus two on the day shifts.
Just a little bit, a quick aside, because Mayor Bailey and I ran some of these numbers behind the scenes, and that about almost 80% of our calls are actually happening during the bulk of the day, because there was that question we originally had of, do we go to 50% during the day, and what do we lose as a part of that? And so, or do we, beef up the night was part of the conversation. And they're between the hours of 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. That's where 80% of our calls are happening.
Did you break that down by calls inside and outside town limits?
It's, from what we understand, it's everything that is being called the town limits.
That's how we
Non-traffic.
understood that to be, yeah.
Yeah, non-traffic within town limits. So we do have to weigh that particular data point.
So the extra duty you're talking about are extra due to traffic, right? And because you said they're averaging about 8 a day. Is that right, Rita? Extra duty traffic?
The traffic, and it's about 8 days per month that they sign up for right now.
And can they respond to other stuff, or is they just there to write tickets?
Yeah. Well, we talked to Deputy Chief Olkers about that, and he said yes. We could also use them for the bailiff shift potentially, where they could come in for that, and then they could do extra duty traffic after. But I think it's just maybe more practically difficult to manage that aspect because
Yeah, it seems like in the winter it's better because they can couple their day with the hours they can work at Eldora and then get a full day out of the deal. But the summers, I don't, they'd have to do a full shift. Isn't that where we've had a harder time getting people to sign up?
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, I did make a note that in January of 24, there were 16 days that they did sign up for.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
During yeah.
Well, they started off with a bang and we kind of
Yes.
slowed them down. Yeah.
Yes.
And because at the time we were 120 for the year, so they were going to burn out a bunch of days quickly. But I guess my question was, if they're in town, it sounds like they can, and they're here for traffic, they could respond to some of those calls, like Nicole said, that we get, seem to get more during the 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. shift. So they could respond to calls other than traffic, is what you guys are saying, right?
And it may be probably priority based a little bit too, like on responses, I believe. I think.
Okay.
Priority would be different.
Can we get, so we're kicking this around, and then obviously we need to talk to BCSO about it to see what works for them next.
Yeah, we've talked about both. They need an answer from us relatively quickly. They have their budget being approved kind of like in the same time frame as us. So Chief would really like us to just kind of give him an idea of what we're thinking. I think we have a little bit of time to play with it. If you wanted to go to the 50% contract, really what we'd be working out is the extra duty shifts and what they would be able to provide us with. I think that's what we'd really like. I guess that's the question is, are you prepared to give us direction on the 100% or the 50%? And then on the 50%, we could have an additional piece of direction potentially about the extra duty shifts if that's something that we could set up. But I think we do need to give them an answer relatively quickly.
Okay, right now, thank you. We're asking clarifying questions before we kind of dig into our discussion. We'll get public comment before it, but that's good to know. So basically, we need to what we need to clarify is the options we want, and then I mean, are we only examining options that they've already said given a thumbs up to as options, or are we?
Yeah,
because you said something earlier that made me think you've come up with another idea that isn't on there.
The
that
third
they don't know about
is us contracting just for more extra duty. So doing the 50% and then contracting for more extra duty. What we know is that extra duty shifts usually pay for themselves because they pay for the cost of the shift plus like there's a differential there usually. So what we could do, what we're suggesting is, if we went with that model, we would just need to say we would like to have more extra duty shifts, and then that's really going to be dependent on their capacity to provide those extra duty shifts, where that's kind of a sign-up based thing. We know the 50% deal and the 100% deal are okay. It's just a matter of if we decide to do extra duty, we just need to talk to them and figure out logistically how that would work.
And we're talking about kind of three models right now, and I know we want to save this for discussion. I'm just throwing it out there. I think there is a fourth opportunity, or possibly additional opportunities. I don't want to talk about it right now, not clarifying, question time. But there are some other opportunities that could help drive down this impact on our reserve fund.
So what I wanted to also mention, maybe also what would work on slide 1 with extra duty right now. We could just go with that model and add, if we wanted to be at the 100%, go with that model and add extra duty and reduce that, the 565, by another 50,000. If we wanted to be at the 100%. Or if we went with the 50%, we could go with number one, reduce it by 168, right? And you remember how Asa, for those who were here last year, said, well, let's do 60,000 expenses for half a year. Then he'll come and talk to us and see, okay, how do we like it? How did it go? And then we could do the extra duty for the second half of the year at that point. So in other words, we could go with scenario one, reduce it by 168,000. So that would be, I don't know, 50,000 more, so around 400,000, give or take, without adding another set of extra duty right this moment.
I have two questions. So extra duty kind of pay for themselves. Why? Because they're giving out more tickets?
They're here specifically for that purpose. So they get overtime for those shifts or
Right.
double time depending on how it's done. And then they come up specifically to write those citations. So the number of citations that they would write in that shift are theoretically enough to pay for that shift and then generate a little bit of revenue for the town.
So it's almost double.
So why can't we just give direction for the people that we have that we're not paying overtime for to just spend more time
The
giving tickets?
sheriff's office has a policy that precludes that as an opportunity for the town.
And that's where Sergeant Jen had informed us that her estimate for revenue there is the 43,000 versus the 240,000 that we had.
That's
budgeted
based
in.
on every deputy writing one ticket per week. And she kind of gave us a low number because it's only our second year. So there's really no baseline really to go off because this year, for whatever reason, didn't go quite right. So what she's saying is that's probably the minimum that could be done. But there is a policy, and it's not a bad policy. They want to be ethical in how they're writing these citations. They don't want to set quotas or something like that. So that's where that comes from. But it makes it a little bit difficult for us to forecast how much revenue they could generate. We know if they were to write 2 tickets a week, every person, we'd be more like 80,000, or 3 tickets, it'd go up incrementally from there. So it's possible that we could see revenue increasing from the regular shifts. But then that also comes down to if it's a 50% shift, that means they're going to be responding outside of Nederland more often potentially. If it's a 100% shift, if they're on a P1 or P2 call that's more serious, they may not be doing traffic enforcement. So there's going to be some ebb and flow to that number. And until we have historic data, it's going to be difficult to say for sure what that really looks like, I think.
So do extra duty traffic, the traffic duty people, do they have quotas that they have to meet?
No, but it's they're here on
That's
an
all they do.
overtime shift, and that's what they're here for. So they're either helping, sometimes they help at Eldora with traffic, just make sure the traffic is good, and then they can do the traffic on the canyon or whatever the case may be. So I don't know exactly what the numbers are, but what it boils down to is they get an hour of travel time on either side, and then each citation, say it takes an hour. So they might write 3 or 4 in a shift, potentially what could happen. And then the other kind of unknown factor is how it handles in court. So somebody could pay that ticket, or they could come to court and it might get dismissed, or it might have something else happen. So it's a little hard to forecast 100% how it should work. But one of the things that we've been doing is talking to the sheriff's office pretty extensively. And Sergeant Mendez and I have been meeting pretty frequently and talking about how these things need to look and what we're requiring, and looking at daily logs and looking at when people are here. And I think that we can make some improvements that'll give some more transparency to the entire system, and just showing so everybody's on the same page. And then they've also committed to us to working with us next year because they understand the kind of increases we're talking about here and kind of the nature of the beast here. So I think the goal either way is to come up with a more sustainable, resilient system moving forward.
Yeah, and what I didn't want to do this year again, budget so high, and then, it's not happening.
So Rita, one of the suggestions that you were saying was for that first model where we're showing the
Right.
deficit of 565 plus is increasing the keeping it at 100%, but then increasing the extra duty beyond what's on this number in order to bring in more revenue? Is that what you were
That's
suggesting?
one, but that would only be 50,000 more.
Okay, that's okay. I'm
Right.
tracking. So
That
it'd
would
be,
also work, right? So
Yep.
it's really all about, we need to decide, do we want to do extra duty or not? That's
Okay.
basically it. This model right here that you're seeing has one set of extra duty.
okay, great.
Both of those do.
Okay. I have another question, another clarifying question, maybe potentially unpopular, but as we're starting to look at this budget, I show the visitor center making a deficit of 41,000. Is there a reason why we would keep that open?
That's been a pretty big conversation, and I think that there's a couple reasons why we would want to. It's really the primary place somebody comes in Nederland when they arrive, and it's really our only real wayfinding thing that we have from an economic development tool to point to the businesses. That's not enough by itself, but what we think is that we should be able to run it more consistently next year, where it's open more frequently, and look at how it's running, and hopefully make it recoverable, like 100% recoverable on the income. But I think that's a really good question, and I think that's something that's a good question for the board, is whether or not you want to have that operating next year or not.
Well, this is Tanya. I mean, it hasn't always been working at a loss, correct? In the past, did it bring in a profit?
Well, we just budgeted pretty high, right? For 24, we did the consignment sales and all that. That's just not working
Yeah,
out.
I mean, I can't, my eyes aren't, I can't see the form very well right now, but how did it do in 2022 or 2021?
Better, and I think one of the things that happened this year is that the revenue was estimated fairly high for 2024.
Yeah.
And so what we've done is, yes, it's less, but also this is probably realistically what it could bring in, and we think we can achieve those goals that we have here. So the other thing is there's enough, I think we're at the point where we have enough stock of things that are sold there that there doesn't really need to be extensive investment in that next year. We can kind of sell off what we have. And I think between that and just staffing it frequently and making sure it's always open, we could see like really what its real operations could look like potentially.
And maybe buying things that are more popular as well.
Yes.
I mean, I think they're like the best location in town. I think somebody could make money there. And so the question is why we aren't, is a management issue. So I think there's a lot of potential for it, but I don't know, who should be running it and the model we should be, doing. But I think we can make a lot more sales for sure, especially if you open a little earlier in the summer.
But that also requires staffing, somebody to be there. I mean,
Well, right.
it's
I know,
operated
yeah.
at a loss since 2022.
Well,
I mean, what we've
It
got.
just depends. I mean, I haven't personally. Well, then I don't know. Maybe we should rent it out to somebody who can actually run a business that makes money, because that's like the best location in town. It should be making money. So that's just something I think needs to get discussed for sure. We don't really want to lose money with it there. I agree with you 100%. If we're losing money, we should stop running it and just rent it to somebody who can make money. And I'm all for that too, because at this point we got to stop losing money. I have a question back to the police. If we went to the 50% model, how would that affect our co-responder? Are we still planning on using all of our ARPA funds to pay for the co-responder this year?
Currently, that's the plan. That was the direction. So we've got that kind of schedule that doesn't really hit the budget since that is ARPA dollars, but there is no plan and no identified funding to move forward into 2026.
Right. So we probably couldn't pay for it in that year. So, so one more year. I just wanted to know, like, if we kept the co-responder and we reduced our hours, would they be able to overlap enough that she would be able to work? Because doesn't she need a police officer present to do anything? Or am I wrong?
It depends on the call, but it just, there is something there. She can go out on some calls by herself. She also does some other things in the community. So that is something that I don't really fully know the answer to exactly how that would affect her.
So I wanted to, back to the visitor center really quick. Back in 2022, we did make 121,000 in revenue, but I think that probably had to do a little bit with frozen dead guy days as well, okay? And then what's changed as well, we used to have more or less full-time staff, and it's been a transition phase. And what we're hoping, or what we're budgeting for in 2025, as far as staff goes, is to have somebody there more hours than it's been. So, and I have to say, we did the consignment sales, we budgeted that at 40,000 in 2024. I drastically reduced that to 6,000 because that is just not happening at this point, so.
There is an intangible benefit to having a visitor center, and it's well documented that visitor centers increase economic activity in towns. And I don't have numbers for ours, but I do think there is a value to having a visitor center. I think, like Tanya said, we need to do a better job of managing it and making sure it's open effectively and providing the services that need to be provided. But I think that that is an honest and good question about should it be operated this next year.
And I'm not saying, I'm not proposing or suggesting that it's closed indefinitely, but if we hit a pause for a year because the budget looks pretty scary, right? I mean, even if we were to hit a pause for a year and rent it out and accrue, you know, what Tanya's suggestion, accrue rent that way, you know, that has a potential for not having the expenditures associated with it, but just net revenue. And then we can revisit for next year.
The only thing I would just caution is that it may be difficult to rent that facility out in a time frame that makes sense for that to work in the summertime, maybe, because we would need to bring back quite a bit of staff work just to get to that point and make sure we can legally rent it and that it'll all work.
Sure.
And then we need to look at like an RFP process potentially to figure out who we're going to rent it to. So I think there may be some big topics there potentially that we just need to cover. So I think that's something that, and the other thing I just want to note is we do have those bathrooms there, and those are a pretty important resource downtown.
100%.
Yeah.
Don't shut down the
Right.
bathrooms.
And that's part of the cost there too. And so I think that's just one of the things I'd say is that we just want to think about. We've had some ideas too. I think there's some things we could do. I think having a soda machine there might be a really good idea. So it's really the first place people stop, and we have that old broken kiosk that we could replace fairly easily. And I think there's some other ideas that could happen, but ultimately, I think, you know, we're in a pretty serious budget situation. I understand where this question's coming from. I think it's a valid one. So.
Yeah, I mean, all I'm seeing is a negative 41,000, and we couple that with the 50,000 that we could capture from extra duty. Now we're at 100,000 difference. You know, that's meaningful for a small town like us.
Right. So that would be a $44,600 savings, what you were just talking about, if we did.
Just
Excuse
to
me?
shutter it for a year. Yeah.
I have a question about the expenses for it. Does that include staff time that the
Very
budget-
little.
So what, I mean, is there an added cost of having staff there? To have somebody there at the visitor center, like, is that cost included in the current?
Or is that
Yes.
just rolled
Yes.
into the general
Budget.
Personnel operating?
Right, that's
It's under the visitor center, yes.
so what the 122, if I have that line right,
So you're looking at.
125. Yeah, so the 125 that we spent in 2024, did that include?
I think it's only 97. I think you're off.
You're on the wrong line.
I think you're off a line.
No, the adopted budget for 2024 was 125.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So
Oh, I
in
see.
2024, did that includes what we spent on staff hours at the visitor center?
Okay. Gosh, okay, so actuals, we spent 90,000. Is that what you're talking about? No?
Yeah, but the 2024 budget adopted
yes.
is 125. But what she's saying is our actuals right now are the 90. Is that what you're saying?
It's reduced to 97,000.
97,000.
And I think this
Okay.
question is, does that include staff?
Wages?
costs?
Yes,
Wages, okay.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, it
Okay.
does.
Okay. I have another question about the sheriff's department, but let's wrap up any other visitor center stuff first.
Yeah, so I put that.
Clarifying questions specifically.
I mean, if there's a way, I mean, John, your point of having like a vending machine or something there.
Will cost money to bring in.
Right, but if we could maybe hybrid shutter, like don't pay somebody to be there so much if that's not generating any revenue. But if we put in a vending machine, snacks and drinks, that maybe that offsets the revenue from that could offset some of the cost and maybe come out ahead by not paying somebody to be there. Not totally close it, but
the soda machine you were talking about would require somebody there.
I think we could probably figure out a way to handle that. I don't have a really strong plan about how to do that. I just was thinking those are some amenities that might make sense over there. We could, I guess it really depends on how you guys want to do this. The other option would be is we could cut the budget for operating hours too and just try to run it on weekends maybe and see. I think that's kind of what we anticipated was like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
Maybe. Yeah.
Tuesdays, I think it was taking Tuesdays off, but we could reduce that schedule and like run it on a more bare bones. But I think that's one of our issues is it's been inconsistently open. And one of the things we could also do is pause and then revisit this in May or June, potentially, and look at, I guess we need to think about hiring. So there might need to be a little bit earlier than that, but look at where we are financially as we kind of enter the new year and like what we're looking like and whether we can operate it maybe just in the summer, because it's probably really the critical time is to have it open during the summer.
But there, yeah, I mean, that's a great option to consider. What do we keep track of numbers of people who walk in there every day?
No, but we could track sales.
Yeah, but I think what John said earlier sits with me, which is a visitor center drives people to other places. And so, I don't know where the wayfinding sits with like signs to tell people where to go, but that it'd be nice to have real numbers about like people coming in, whether they spend money or not is kind of frankly secondary. If they're sending them places where they spend money.
I mean, we're so small though. We're so small that like, won't people kind of like figure out where to go? I mean, you could virtually.
Right. I don't think that equates to reality though.
In the summer,
that makes sense, but a lot of people can't find their way out of their car. So I mean, they need, they want and need, information. They want to be able to ask a question and have it answered. And signs could be, a different way of doing that, but presently they don't exist.
Well, we're supposed to $400,000 wayfinding delivered this year in 2025.
I know people are always trying to go in the visitor center. It's just never open. I see them like trying to get in there all the time. I think the NDDA could potentially help us out with keeping it open. I also think there might be some kind of approach where we could approach maybe some artisan or some people who might want to sell their wares, and then they could work for free to sell their stuff. Like, I think there's a approach that we could get creative with it. Are you saying that most of the expenses are labor?
Well, probably majority next year. There's a couple things I just wanted to note. There is 6,000 cars a day in the peak season that drive past that place. And I think that one of the things is it needs to be revamped, kind of to Tanya's point. We need to make sure it's clear what it is and how it works. We need to clean it out and we need to do it correctly. And I think if we do that, we're going to see a massive improvement in what's happening over there. The other thing is that we've also had some conversation. There's a lot of interest in the kind of the artist community, I'd say, and like kind of what we have at Farmers Market to be able to use right away for vending as well. And we don't currently have that in place, but we could potentially allow people to vend in front of the visitor center. There's a couple of spaces that we could rent out so you could have a booth similar to the Farmers Market. And that could potentially add to our bottom line too. And that's something that we were wanting to look at in the new year to change how our peddlers licensing works just a little bit for that
Yeah.
purpose.
I mean, I know that I would work in there for free if I could sell my stuff in the store when I brought my stuff in. You know, I think there is a potential for getting the labor costs down. And I also think we should ask the NDDA for maybe some money for revamping it and making it look better, and potentially staffing a person that could potentially be there working and also doing NDDA stuff when it's slow. But I don't know if that's possible. But
I really
and
like both of those suggestions. a
I'm
lot,
not in the mood
actually.
to close it. I think that'd be really depressing to shut down our
Same.
visitor center, the best location in town. So
Yeah.
if we can't
Oh.
make it work, then I think we should lease it out to somebody next year and start thinking about that as a possibility. But just to shutter it is so depressing. I just,
So to answer your question, Trustee Corvallon, salaries are 51,000 of that 90, and that's been increased by 11,000 from 24 to 25. Again, the plan is to increase staff and have the visitor center open more, and therefore hoping revenue will pick up again.
We might be able to cut more out of that budget too. We might be able to really bare bones that project if we wanted to, like looking at hours, and he's got like
But
some
I thought
marketing
that was the
materials.
problem, you know.
Yeah, well, what I'm saying is if we really focus on being open during peak hours, and then he's got some marketing things that we have done in the past that we could maybe pull out too, potentially.
It's just, the priority that I'm looking at is if we, 50,000 here for extra duty, 41,000 or 44 for the visitor center. We've got departments asking for equipment, and yet, and we're still operating at a 565,000 plus deficit, right? And so it's like, visitor center open, that's going to lose money versus allocating money towards a skid steer or a piece of equipment that could be really helpful for our departments. That's sort of where my head is going in terms of where's the priority. And I get it. And I agree, Trustee Corvallon, it would be depressing to close. I wouldn't be advocating for closing, but at least revamp and see if there is a possibility for renting it out or whatnot. It's hard for me to watch or to see a deficit coming from that line item. That's all.
Well, we'll discuss it more, but I do like Tanya's ideas about the DDA having a role, or artisans who maybe can do work in a room. They don't need a bunch of equipment and can do that while they're there. I feel like a pause is not realistic. A pause is a closure, long term. And I just really, it'd be good to have real numbers to know, how many people come through there.
John, I don't think that's realistic. Is that realistic?
Might possibly have that. I can find out. I don't know if they track that, but they may track it.
We should track that.
I have two more questions about police as well. Do you want to go first, Luke?
Sure. I have a pretty high level big picture one is, this talk of dropping to a 50% coverage and then trying to make up the difference with some extra duty. Extra duty is just traffic. Like, that's not policing, that we're not making up. Right. But we're not making up the coverage that we would normally be getting by bringing in extra duty, like traffic, like that. Those are different things in general.
Just to clarify, they had said that they could respond to other calls.
They could, right? But I'm just saying, like, the things that we are specifically asking our officers to do during regular full-time shift, we're saying don't do traffic, like community policing, like that's what we've asked them to do, and dropping that to 50% and replacing that with some extra duty traffic is just, that's more than a budgetary decision. That's a service decision as well. And so I want us to be very aware of that.
Right. That's where we said 80% of our calls are all during the day, right? And
right. But that's not, yeah, anyway, I want to make sure that we're not like saying this is an apples to apples comparison of we're going to get the same service for less money and covering it with extra duty. Like it's
Yeah.
not going to happen.
No, good point. We aren't.
So, and the, the cost of the 50% service is, I mean, it's obviously less, but it's not like, it's not half, right? It's like 80% of the cost for 50% of the coverage. So those combined, to me, it just seems like I would rather see us try to pick up more extra duty traffic shifts on top of our full-time coverage just to try to bring in some more revenue. So that's my feeling about that.
And I have 2 questions. Did we ever get info back about response times from them?
We did. We have that Sergeant Mendez is going to start including that in her reports.
Great.
But there is a chart that I can share with you in my staff update at the next meeting if that will work.
Awesome, thank you. And then have we gotten any more recent feedback from the fire department about these staffing levels?
Yes, but I don't know that it's a data-driven answer. It's more qualitative, which is more indicative of the long-term situation and some of the things that were happening early last year.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know that the jury may be out on how that is working.
Okay, thank you.
More clarifying questions? If none, we'll go to public comment. Those in the room, any comment on our budget?
Are we?
Oh, we have more.
We have way more.
Oh my God, sorry. So sorry.
Yeah.
I can be done if you want me to.
No, stop.
No,
Don't.
no.
No, keep going, please.
We just been spinning around on this one for a while, so I was feeling like we're done.
Okay, so the community center, there was just a slight change in the community center since our last presentation, and that was for a computer replacement. Next. The sewer fund overall change in net asset, which is highlighted in yellow, went from 28,235 to 26,750, a slight decrease since our last meeting. All the changes were noted in the detailed information email to you. But Andrew has something to say.
Hello, Andrew.
Hey, good evening. So this just came in this weekend that the teen center projects that they'll need a 2-inch water meter for the preschool they're planning to build, and a 2-inch tap. And our sewer tap fees are based on your water meter size, which is an indication of how much water you use. So that would be $109,262 based on the proposed 2025 rate. And so,
That's the 24 rate.
oh, sorry.
That's okay.
But
it's even more money.
So it's 5%.
It's even more money.
So it's 5% more than that. Sorry.
That's cool.
So we're planning to add that.
So a 2-inch, because Stephen had talked to me about this, and he was throwing a very different number on. A 2-inch line is only 109,000.
114, but
Thank you, Rita.
yes, sir.
Okay, but how about for 2026? I mean, just with what we project outward, even at the 5%. I mean, because we're getting
Wasn't it that they thought it was a different diameter?
Yeah,
That's what I
swear. I heard
this is
say
good. This is bringing it
3/4.
back to what we talked about when we approved the SRU, which is good.
So
to hear.
it sounds like it's lower than potentially what?
About 250,000, 245, $35,000 lower. Yeah.
So wait. Oh, sorry, Chris.
So, because they thought they were going to be able to get away with a 3/4 inch when they proposed 3/4 inch
Is your
water,
mic on?
3/4 inch sewer.
Is your mic on?
Is your mic
Mic's on, yeah.
There you go.
And now they're
There.
saying they need to go to a 2-inch sewer. They also need a 2-inch water.
Correct. Yeah. So the sewer is based on your water meter size because that indicates how much water you'll use and your
But
impact
those
on the
PIF
system.
fees, so, I mean, because the water one is the more significant one. Going
Correct.
from a 3/4 inch water to a 2-inch water is a jump from like, what, 50,000 to 250,000.
That's correct.
So they're going to have, we're going to additional $200,000 of revenue there,
Mhm.
plus the additional 90,000 on the sewer side.
So it'll be an
But
additional 114
Yeah.
to what you see right here.
But they were talking about like a $350 fee.
Yeah, that's what they thought,
344,000.
maybe like a few weeks
Well, I
ago,
hadn't heard
Yeah.
about that.
but it's less than that. It's 2 inches.
What would be the total for them? Because Stephen thinks it's $344,000 for 2-inch lines.
I'm doing the math here, it's 350,000
For what?
Okay.
based on our fee
between the
schedule.
two.
Two-inch
Between the
Oh,
two.
Between
together
the
is
two,
350.
yes. Okay, that makes
Is what we've
sense.
been saying this
Yep.
pretty much this whole time.
And he would need the same size, right?
So their sewer tap would probably be a 4-inch sewer tap, but our PIF fees are based on your water meter size. Because you're more likely to use more water if you need a larger water meter.
Okay.
Okay, so irregardless, what we're saying is that there's more revenue.
So yes,
Correct.
this
In
will
this.
change by 114,000 when you see it next time.
Okay, got it.
Which is great. All right, water. So the water fund has had some significant changes. Since our last meeting, we have projected a decrease in fund balance in the amount of 197,000. That has changed to an estimated decrease of 84,000. However, I don't really need to talk about the rest because, Andrew, go for it. You want to tell them that? Same story here. So what it is, same thing. So this will actually, because I had it all written out here, but that will increase by 246,000 compared to the 84,000 as well. Is that good enough, Andrew?
Yes, thank you. Better than what I could do. Thank you.
So we'll go from a negative balance to a positive.
Positive
On both of those,
by
yeah.
several,
Yeah,
by
so that's
100,000
really nice.
plus.
That is awesome, yes.
Okay.
Oh, actually, you know what? I did want to say one more thing, though, to the water fund. So their CIP, the capital improvements did change from 463,000 to 265,600. And those changes you'll see on the capital improvement slides, but that's also obviously a huge change in decrease in expenditures. Next slide, please. There was no change to the overall dollar amounts for the streets fund, and we're projecting a decrease of 115,000. What has changed is the allocation of the capital expenditures, which can be seen on this capital improvement slide as well. Next. No changes have been made to the Parks Fund since our last meeting. Next.
There's one request for direction, just to bring this back around. We had talked about filling out that department with the fourth person. It would likely be paid much at a lower rate than the person that was previously in that role, but we do need to make sure that we get that direction. Currently, that employee is in the budget, but it could be removed. It would significantly impact their operations to be running without that person.
And that is in the general fund.
Yeah, what's the
Is that what we're
base,
talking-
this is the salary of that one person?
I can look that up.
If you could, that would be
That's
great.
what I budgeted, because I did budget that person at a lower rate already when I did the budget, so.
Okay.
Are you able to get specific on how it affects their operations?
Yeah, they've got, right now, the way that it's been working, they've had one person with the CDL that can be doing some of that part of the work, and then they've got several crews that go out and do mowing, or they'll do weed whacking or whatever it is. And then in the summertime, they've also got noxious weeds and things like that. And so I think that ultimately it's just going to really cut their capacity to manage projects, which is probably going to mean that things just take longer to get finished.
Didn't they lose the CDL?
They did.
Yeah.
And Nikki's going to get hers tomorrow. She's going to try to get it done. But so that's probably not the most significant impact. But right now, they're just, especially like in plowing, they're not as able to help streets as they should be able to, and things like that too. So it's something we can figure out, but it would definitely be a challenge.
So the amount budgeted was, it's 48,000, that's just wages, and then you got to remember too, it's health insurance,
Right.
that's a cost.
The burden,
and
yeah.
Retirement.
30%. Yep, an additional 30%.
30%, is it?
Yep. All right, well, that's about the 50K on top if we were to go with option one and do some extra duty.
So, so the fourth employee, the new employment package would be the 48,000, right?
Yes,
So 48 plus about 15, so about 63, 65,000. Okay.
So 62.4.
All right.
Okay.
So no changes has been made to the Conservation Trust
Actually,
Fund.
sorry, I have one clarifying
Okay.
question on that. Fourth employee. Well, it's a parks fund. I assume they do most of their work in the summer and fall.
So again, it's that employee is it's budgeted in the general fund.
It's in the general fund. I'm saying,
Yes,
but the
sir.
actual
Oh.
work of the Parks Department tends to be, summer and fall.
There's other operations. They help with snow plowing and then they run the rink.
In the rink.
The rink will have.
Yep.
One option that we did talk about that
And
I'd like
sidewalks.
to bring forward next year is to think about combining community center operations and parks, but that's a little bit longer term conversation.
Any other questions for the Parks Fund?
Yeah, kind of a tangential question, John. How much does the Parks Department spend their time in like the Central Business District area?
They have 2 part-time employees that are funded through the NDDA. So those employees spend a little bit more time, and then there's the flowers work, which is kind of tangential. They do a lot of work in Chipeta Park, which is in the DDA boundary. And then there's many, many small parcels that they work on that are town-owned, the ones that you guys have been kind of looking at over the last year or so.
Yeah.
So I think there's a pretty good chunk of it that happens in the downtown zone, I guess I'd say.
Yeah. So, but those currently NDDA funded employees are for just on like the beautification side, or what you're saying is that they're actual.
I think they work, but they're part-time employees right now, and that has caused some, the training and all the things they need for all the equipment doesn't always happen. So I think sometimes they're more on those kinds of tasks that are easier to manage. But the other thing, the DDA did say that maybe there's an opportunity to talk about, maybe they could help fund a more full-time position, and I think that's something that we can work on.
So those
That's
were they
what
were
I'm
2
more
months,
interested
2 or
in.
3 months in the summer, those employees.
Say that again, Rita.
They were just 2 or 3 months in the summer.
Yeah.
That's all.
That's exactly why I'm asking, is because there seems a majority of their time that these parks folks are spending in the CBD. And we're asking for a person to be funded, or, like a 4th person. Is there an opportunity to have some help that way?
I don't know exactly, because I'd need to go to their board, but that
For
is
sure.
a question to ask, I think.
Another thing on parks, I know High Performance Earthworks has offered a good chunk of man hours as a contract situation with the town, and also organizing volunteer efforts, which would provide a lot of extra manpower and, hours, especially during the summer months. Is there any progress on
To like clean.
working on that contract?
It's a complicated legal situation that I'm not comfortable discussing at this moment.
Gotcha.
They're going to take out trash cans and stuff, or?
Well, they would take over volunteer organization stuff since the town's.
I'd like to bring that back. There's some challenges with how the town has managed volunteers, and I think we need to fix it because we do have that potential to have volunteers being, they're the kind of lifeblood of a community. But then there's also equipment that needs to be run, and then especially like if we're in a fire.
Safety.
Yeah, there's a lot of pieces that have come up as we've talked about volunteer management that we just need to, even on the IT side of it, that are just complicated. But that is a really good offer that I would really like to bring forward to the board for future discussion very soon.
Okay.
All right. So Conservation Trust Fund, like I said, there's no changes since our last meeting. Pretty straightforward. Go to the next slide. So on the Health and Human and Services Fund, also
Thank you,
no
gentlemen.
changes. Good night. We just, the board will need give staff direction if the percentage should stay the same at the 51-49 split. That's where it's currently at. And also no changes to the NDDA slide. Now we're moving into the capital improvements. And you will see in red some of the more important things and or changes. So that Skidster is still not in the budget at this time. Let's go next slide. Streets Fund changed. They had 70,000 budgeted under equipment, and Josh had changed his mind. Instead of the 35,000 for a used truck, we are actually carrying forward 35,000 of culvert installation that we had budgeted this year. So I'm carrying forward some of that. So the amount hasn't changed. It's just, like I said, he's just allocating the funds a little different. And then same with water. I mean, Andrew, if you want to talk about that, that'd be great.
Sure, yeah, you'll see the change on the water capital improvement projects, a reduction from $250,000 to $50,000 for distribution improvements. Talking with JVA, instead of trying to do design and construction next year, we're going to focus on design and then pursue grant funding if we can. And then you'll see in the upcoming rate study, we're planning to set aside money for construction in the coming years, but this 50,000's for design.
I think that's it.
This one. You go back to that last slide.
Which one?
DDA.
The DDA.
DDA.
I have one other
Okay.
comment, but you can do the DDA first.
No, go ahead.
You had asked about the bulk water project.
Yes.
We ran some numbers for that, and so I could talk about that, but it could come after whenever you'd want.
If you'd like to go ahead. I love numbers. So.
Okay. This is a bit of a back of the envelope calculations, but it's common for communities to charge more for bulk water because there's convenience and some additional infrastructure work required to deliver that water. So looking at what Boulder County used for filling up their trucks last year, they used 2.2 million gallons from fire hydrants last year. And there's additional usage in addition to Boulder County, but they're the largest customer and they're the most regular customer. So if we look at just kind of a projection of potential revenue long-term from that, I looked at just based on their usage. And I also just want to state up front that, what we charge would be up to the board. So it's something we would bring back to the board. And I think we would want to do that in coordination with the county because they are such a big customer for us. And they also give us gas, which is very nice. They don't give us gas, but they maintain a gas station for us, which is very nice. So we would want to do it in partnership with them. But so just looking at neighboring communities, what they charge for bulk water, we would see a rate of return on the budgeted amount of $100,000 anywhere from 5 to 12 years. For example, Idaho Springs, I believe they charge $20 per thousand gallons, which like above what we currently charge, that would lead to a 5-year rate of return. And then if you look at Lyons and you look at the difference between what they charge and what we currently charge, that would be a 12-year rate of return. And I've only spoken to one vendor, and their bulk water station comes with a 5-year warranty, and they have existing facilities that have existed for over 15 years. So it's really depending on what we charge, but it could pay for itself. I'm very confident saying that. And that's not projecting any new customers and or other customers other than our largest customer. And then I just want to share there's some qualitative reasons for doing it. Putting the use of our fire hydrants in other people's hands adds some additional risk to damaging hydrants, but also some potential water quality issues. And so these bulk water stations are designed to be used by anyone, and they're designed to protect our water quality and not allow any contamination in our system. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Discuss DDA really quickly.
Yes.
Okay. So the DDA, just as a reminder, they have their plan of development and they bring these projects to you and then you would approve by resolution. We've talked about having a joint work session with the DDA. These are the projects they identified in their last board meeting when they were setting their budget. They do have a meeting tomorrow, so that's an opportunity to talk. But I think ultimately what we're hoping for is to like do some coordination between the DDA and the Board of Trustees through a joint work session sometime in the very near future. These are the anticipated projects they have, and again, that would be something that you guys would have some say on as they bring them forward to you.
25,000 for website? Is that for you? For town's website?
No,
What's that?
they would like a new website, I think is all that is.
Clarifying questions, please.
I'm just going to jump on the website thing because what kind of need do they have for a website?
I think that they just need a good website, a modern, responsive website. I think there's an opportunity here for us to work with them, and if we got a Civics Plus platform, they could have their own landing page and they could redirect it so that it looks like DDA, and they could potentially help sponsor our cost of that, which is like $5,000 a year. I think that'd probably be the right way to go, and I think they were just trying to budget for worst case scenario. But this is where we need to figure out this coordination piece so that we can coordinate more closely and make that happen. But I think there's some opportunities there for sure that would be very similar to what other communities do.
Yeah, because it seems like either, these days a website is either Squarespace that costs you very little, or you're building something custom which costs you
like $150
more than $25
a year.
They already own their domains and everything, so all we really need is a redirect from those if we did build
so if they can, I would say if they can piggyback on the Civic Web or build their own Squarespace and save themselves $20,000.
I mean, even at the highest, a Wix or a Squarespace is like $500 a year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so I'm just going to go through, I'll just be vociferous about this again. I just personally don't think an DDA needs to be paying for $75,000 in beautification. I'd ask for a pause. I'd ask for a pause on the public arts, $50,000. That's enough, more than enough to be paying for a full-time parks person, where you're saying that they're dedicating most of their time into the CBD region and area. And
or staffing for the visitor center, which I think would benefit the DDA a lot.
But even then, like even if the visitor center is still operating at a deficit, like I'd still be slightly nauseous about keeping that going. Even if it's funded by the NDDA, if it's operating at a deficit, it's just again a broader conversation to have. And I know that Kate was here last time suggesting that there would be a supplemental budget to talk about some of these infrastructure things, but we're when I see 25,000 for a website, I'm having a hard time finding words when we're operating at such a deficit in other ways.
There's been a proposed plan to work with Cheney Bostic, who did the sub-area plan, to make sure that their plan of development is coordinated and the Board of Trustees is aligned in their strategic plan as well. So the comp plan and their plan of development, which is a legally required document, are aligned.
Sure.
I think the challenge for us is that we don't have the DDA as a separate board. And so we need to really think about the coordination between the BOT and the DDA and think about making sure everything is working the way it should, because these are things that need to come to you as resolutions. And I think that we really need to make sure that the operations of both boards are aligned, because otherwise we're just going to run into conflict, I think. And so one of the things we can do, like I said, these all require your approval, but we don't set their budget, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But this is something, if we could have this meeting I think Cheney being there would be very good for everyone, because she understands both what the plan of development needs to look like based on the sub-area plan and the whole entire comp plan structure that's being worked on, and she can coordinate our goals and her goals. So,
and regarding that, I'm all on board for, because that is dealing with infrastructure and things to remedy our central business district, right? Like, I'm totally on board with that. And having that meeting sooner rather than later, I'm all for. But where we need creative solutions and a $25,000 website and $75,000 in beautification and $50,000 in public arts, I just raised the question of, do we need to hit a pause on some of these things and invest more wisely? And I'd love to hear from other trustees on this.
I just want to say, I want to get this meeting, Andrew and I and John have been going back and forth, but scheduled soon, and we'll talk to all the board members to, find a date that works for folks. Because for what, among other things, I think they'll get more granular on these numbers that just look, that we don't understand may, with some detail make more sense. But working together so that we prioritize together, I'm fully into that idea. And so I think so is the NDDA. So go ahead.
I want to let Nicole know that in the beautification, that's where those 2 part-time employees are at, and there's some budgeting for new trash cans in that as well. It's not just for the flowers. I think the flowers are about half that amount of money for the flower pots, which so just FYI, that's got the employees for Nikki there. And like about $10,000 worth of trash cans or something.
Thanks, Tanya. Yeah, I mean, and if the 2 part-time employees aren't working out from a logistics standpoint for Nikki, then I would even more advocate like that turning over into a full-time position.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm not 100% impressed with what's been going on with Gercio Field and everything, so I'm not really sure also what's working and what's not in this town. And throwing more money at it doesn't seem to be doing anything, so I don't know. But that's that. And then the public art, well, you know what that's been doing. So I don't think it needs to be either or. I think you can ask the budget to throw that in. And then you can also ask for clarification on the website. I'm trying to, does anyone remember when Peter came to us and he wanted to have like a Nederland website? Like, not the town Nederland, but more of a tourist one. And he was talking about building it and all that. And I don't know if anyone remembers that, but I'm
Vaguely.
thinking maybe I feel like what Peter's job is like that it could be absorbed by the NDDA, either with him or with another employee doing some of that same stuff, public engagement, managing the visitor center, and events. So those are 3 of the main issues that he works on. So I don't know why the NDDA doesn't maybe pay for that job and use that to our benefit more. That's just one of the things I've been throwing around a couple times because it seems like all that's in the NDDA wheelhouse. And then that website never got built, but maybe it does still need, most towns have a tourist website where they lump in, and it's usually run by the NDDA or something like that, where they lump in all the activities and things going on and, businesses advertise on it, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know if this website, what it's going to, if it's going to other stuff. A lot of things are maybe there's an employee thrown in there. I don't remember.
I think one of the intentions of the DDA with this budget was to create placeholders for these things. And I think that that's one of the challenges about what you have. They have separate money. It's not really town money. And so I think what we need to do, we still have to be able to approve a budget. And I think it's important to remember that you guys have approval over these projects. And so I guess one of my questions in terms of direction here is how would you like staff to manage the next steps of this conversation? Or is it good to have this work session and know that these things are going to evolve and you still have a control factor so that we can move the budget forward? Or do we need to pause the budget and fix this part and then?
I feel like everything on this list is theoretical, and if it all has to come to us for approval, let them put whatever they want on there. If we're going to have a meeting, let's not hold up the town budget over their wish list.
Agreed, because once we get into a work session, we'll definitely get more granular and we'll kind of understand things better. And then, and then those numbers will really probably look different.
Just to be clear though, because I mean, part of when this has come to us before, and there's like a budget line item of 75,000 for beautification, I've never remembered us going then and approving beautification services. So this is my concern, is that we approve this, we don't hold up the budget, and then that line item gets thrown in for things like flowers and stuff.
They're supposed to come before you.
Do you recall us approving beautification?
I don't remember like one-off approvals really.
No, we don't. this gets approved, and then if they change things, then it comes back.
Thank you.
I do believe we approve resolutions to disperse to the DDA, and I can look into it for beautification in 2024.
That's what the bylaws say.
Thank you.
And we control the check at the end
Yeah,
of the
we
day,
do.
so we don't cut a check unless the board approved it, right? Oh, okay.
They cut their own checks.
I thought that we,
I mean, I'm mostly concerned about this 400,000 wayfinding that's been, I just can't even understand how signs can cost that much money, but I've written, there, all the information's there, and this is actually the same thing we approved last year, so.
Yeah,
It's
it is.
basically what
It looks exactly like a template from last year. And so that's just my concern that's just my concern.
For instance, like Riverwalk ended up going to Nikki for fixing the path on the south side of the creek. That's always been there, but making it wider and more ADA. So, I mean, a lot of this stuff ends up going to parks. So there was no Riverwalk actually completed. I don't think it's going to happen this year either. I think it all goes to Chipeta Park and stuff over there for Nikki's budget.
And yes, there are those I do recall like resolutions coming through. But then like it's like this is the budget. Here's the resolution that says that you've approved this budget, and then that's it.
So I'm looking at 2023,
Mhm.
and this is how it's supposed to be. So what the NDDA started doing is, instead of coming to town to ask for the funds, right? They have to borrow the funds from somewhere. So it used to be us, right? Because, we only charged them $50 max. But now the DDA does their own because they have enough funds, right? So they transfer from their savings, blah, blah, blah. So there was in 2023, it's supposed to be like this. It's called a resolution NDDA beautification. There was one in 23, okay? If that should have been done that way with anything really in 24, I believe.
Okay. So
And I'm not seeing any,
Okay.
is what I'm saying in 24.
So this is my concern. This is my request. And this is what I think that we need to just tighten up a little bit, is I'm afraid we say yes to this tonight. And, I'm looking around at the other trustees and then we don't see it afterward. And so that's just my concern. That's all.
they have a meeting tomorrow.
Do
I
we
can-
have to pass this as part of our budget? I guess okay.
Yeah,
I
so
was looking for an easy out. Sorry.
they have a meeting tomorrow, and I can talk to them, and there's another issue going on with the DDA. They're operating under bylaws that were not approved by the board, and we need to change that. And I think I can bring some clarity to this so that the problem is that we have our hearing on the 19th, but I can probably,
I understand. And I
Yeah.
completely understand that this creates more work for you and for town staff. I totally get that.
I guess my question is, I'm just thinking functionally of how I can do like I just need to figure out how I tell you so that you can have some thinking about how you want to do this, and so that we don't, so that the hearing makes sense.
Understood. So the hearing makes sense for next week.
Yeah.
Well, Nicole, what do you want out of this? You want to get rid of beautification? You want to get rid of public art? You want to get rid of the website? Is that what you want?
I want to have the ability to say yes or no when each of these things come up for spending. So that if 75,000 is allocated for beautification, we get that before us and we can say yes or no.
It could be as simple as just reinforcing that the bylaws.
That's
say
what I was
that
going
a
to say. That's
resolution needs to
how the
come.
bylaws are written.
And if that's the case, that's fine, but that's not what we got in 2024.
Right.
Correct.
So we will come up with an answer to that question
Thank
before
you.
it's time to
Sorry.
be important.
With your free time.
Yeah. I think what we just need to do is just make sure that we're on top of that as we go, and just making sure that if there is something that it comes. And I think maybe what it is that the budget needs to change slightly for them, and then they just do a supplemental budget later or something. So, but we can figure that out.
Okay. Thank you everyone for indulging me here.
Yeah, I'm guessing we may not get resistance, that the DDA, maybe I'm wrong. We'll work with us on that. Yeah. That's why I want to meet with them in the same room. Be a lot better. More questions and more presentations.
We've got a little bit more here. Just go through these last couple questions.
Sure.
This, you guys kind of already talked about this, but the big question for tonight is the 100% or the 50% on the sheriff's contract. If you're not prepared to answer that, that's okay. I just need to, we do need to bring that conversation to a conclusion. And then, you know, the extra duty thing I think is tangential, but I think we can make that work.
You know, this would be the one thing in the budget hearing where I might expect to hear some comments, and maybe I'm, you know, optimistic, but we'll hear about them after for sure. But can we bring both of those to what does the sheriff, what kind of time frame does he need for an answer? Because, you know, next week's meeting could be informative if nothing else.
I think he really wanted one at our last meeting, but
yeah, I really think, unfortunately, you know, and he can thank himself for this to a degree, like he's going to need to wait a little longer just because of our sticker shock and what we're trying to figure out.
Okay.
So are we doing the same thing, or are we also presenting a 50% or no? What are we doing for next week? Okay, great.
Yeah, I mean,
Right now it's clarifying questions as best you can.
Do we want to go around the room and see how people feel, just to give staff an idea of if nobody wants 50%, then.
yeah, can we go to public comment and then we can come back?
Yeah, of course. But I mean, I'm just, before tonight's up, is that what staff wants us to do or
Yeah,
not?
that would be a great idea, but we'll hear from the public first. Which shouldn't take long, because there's no one in the room. So what else? You know, I guess for now, you know, we'll come back to giving you an answer on these. Are there other questions you have around this?
Can run them really quick. This is just showing you the dispatch costs, and I do want to note Erie is highlighted because they're expected to go to Weld County, and when that happens, that cost is probably going to be dispersed amongst the other municipalities. So there's $456,000 there that is going to be a problem probably next year.
Do we know if that's going to be split by some population prorated amount?
I would imagine so, but they haven't given us any kind of.
Because I mean, just looking at the size of, you know, Lafayette being
Yeah.
620, I'm guessing they're going to get a $200,000 hit while we might get a 50.
Yeah, I hope so.
But wouldn't like Erie going to Weld County also decrease his total number? I mean, is all this money just assumed that they collect from the towns around, even if towns start dropping out of it? They still want, you know, if we're left with Nederland having to pay $3 million or whatever by ourselves because everyone else opted out, is that,
In the last
doesn't it go
place-
down if you lose a town like Erie?
In the last place I worked, the challenge was the computers required to run a dispatch center are so expensive now that the bigger centers have more, they're just more feasible. And so I think we probably wouldn't see a dramatic decrease.
Okay.
You've seen these numbers. This is the 100% contract again. This is the 50% contract. The other one, and we've kind of talked about some of these, are just any further changes you'd like us to make to the budget. We've discussed the NDDA one. I think the other really important points for us are, you know, we've really talked about the visitor center and public engagement, which is really combined for us, like how we want to handle that. There's potential for us to make other cuts from the budget as well, and we're here for that direction about if you guys would like to do that. And then, you know, the parks position, that's one that we do need to fill if we are going to fill it. And so we would like to just maybe think about the direction that you guys might have on anything besides kind of that PD budget that we could cut at this point. And then this is just the calendar. So those are really the questions. Anything else that we want to cut from the budget? If we can get some feedback or initial idea about whether we want to do on the police contract. And I do think it's fair to say, as you said, they can wait for you. They raised your rates and there's been a lot of challenges here. And I think it's fair to give you a deliberative.
Yeah, it's a
period.
harder decision to make now based on the cost. With that, we'll go to public comment. There's no one in the room, so if folks are online, please raise your hand or start talking. There's really only a couple folks here I don't recognize, so assuming we're going to go ahead and bring it back for discussion. If you were trying to talk, you can butt in here and or you can interrupt us and we'll let you give her a comment then. So we'll bring it back for discussion and nods on next and direction for town staff. Discuss at will. Yeah, let's do that. That might be better. Let's start with Tierney. All right, who wants to start? Is someone ready? Is someone ready? Yeah, because if you're not ready.
She's ready. She don't care. She's ready to perform.
Are we just talking like about everything, or are we talking about like
You,
specific?
you can also like talk again. So like, yeah.
I only get one chance.
Yeah, no. Or you can shake. Oh, actually, I thought about more in, this.
I guess I'll start with the sheriff, as that's our biggest line item. I'm really nervous about going down to 50%. I understand that we're operating at a major deficit for next year. Thank you. But I think that based on the public feedback that we got when we weren't fully staffed, I just don't know if 50% gets us where we need to be. And I'm not sure if extra duty will cover that either. I'm a little resentful that we have to pay overtime in order to get traffic duty. And that doesn't really make sense to me, that there can't be some kind of compromise there, but a policy is a policy. So I think I would be leaning towards 100% and then adding some more extra duty too to kind of offset that cost. That's what I'm leaning towards.
Thanks, Tierney. What about other things in the budget? Anything else pop up?
I'm also a little worried about closing the visitor center and taking a pause. I do think that there are some economic benefits. I get it that we're a really small town and you can see the entire main street just by passing by it. But the first thing you pass by is the visitor center. I do think that it seems like it hasn't been open regularly this year, which I think means that we're not getting the benefits from it that we could be getting. But seeing those data points of seeing the numbers of people come in would be helpful, just so that we see if people are actually stopping or not. I think those are kind of the two biggest things that I want to talk about. Are there other big things that I missed?
Parks.
Parks employee. Thank you. I think it seems pretty essential to have that fourth person. So I would be supporting keeping that in the budget rather than taking it out. But during the talk tomorrow with the DDA, seeing if they would be willing or able to fund part or all of that would be great.
Skid steer.
Thank you.
Steer. Yeah. Great question.
Nicole?
Remind me how much that is.
I believe it was 70.
70, 71,
Yeah.
62 used.
To be 100% honest, we have Andrew, and he's been doing a real good job finding equipment cheaper. So it's possible that we could beat that number, but I'm putting my card, or my money on Andrew there, I guess. But
But we should budget for the higher number.
yeah, I think that's kind of the cost if we had to buy it normal.
And the reality is we do have a process in place. It's painful right now, but there is a process in place. And my guess is that Nikki would rather have an employee rather than the equipment.
She
if we
did
had
say
to
that.
Yes, if we had to prioritize. So for that reason, I would say I am also concerned about going to 50% of policing. I would keep it at 100%. I would encourage us to look at the additional extra duty to potentially pull that 568 deficit down by 50,000. And I would also still be in favor of hitting pause on the visitor center, because even though it's the first thing people see, it doesn't have to say visitor center. I think that there are some things, like Trustee Corvalon had said, either renting it out or having other wares in there. I understand there's the logistics of trying to figure out if you can lease it. But 41,000 deficit is a 41,000 deficit of running that. So that would gets us to about 100,000 less. So we go from 568 to 468. Yeah, it gets us somewhere. I would not be in favor of bringing in the skid steer. I would say let's hit pause on that until next year. And I would be 100% in favor of having that fourth parks person and asking, and the NDDA, what they currently spend in beautification murals is making sure that that's a full-time person for Nikki. And you know, that's my only comment. I don't have anything else.
Okay. Anything else? I'll keep going, but unless you have something else, I'll keep going, and you can
No, go ahead.
you can definitely
Yep, go ahead.
talk. Tanya, you want to go next?
Well, I just had a question about who is managing the visitor center. Is there a manager to it? Like, who does the buying and the scheduling? And how much is that person getting paid?
Right now, it's Peter. There is a part-time staff, and one of the things we have talked about is operations are going to change there no matter what next year. So it will probably look a little bit different, but what we had kind of contemplated was Peter working there on Tuesdays, and then we'd have part-time staff working on the weekend. So he'd just have his office hours in the visitor center or something to that effect. But there would be significant changes there no matter what happens.
That would offset some of that labor cost then.
Yeah.
Well, we're still paying someone. We're just paying someone a salaried. It's a salaried position,
already paying.
and he's not doing
Right. So
other
if we
things.
close the visitor center, how would that affect Peter's job then? How many hours does he devote to that? And
So right now, 12% of his salary is being allocated to the visitor center.
and what does that equal?
He's also
Hold on.
getting a manager's
Oh,
salary.
actually, I do know. Yes. That's not much, $7,500.
Okay, so then the rest is just hourly wages for the
Yeah, very
weekends. And
minimal, but we're increasing one of the part-time staff to 30 hours per week. And that's going to be almost $30,000 for that individual.
One more question, Rita. Safe.
Yes.
You have it identified. We remind me of the numbers again. We had to initially put in $1 million, correct?
I think it was 1.5, and then we added another $1 million.
And then last year was $1 million. Initially was $1.5 million. Can you remind everyone what the return of that has been?
I will tell you in a second here.
Okay.
$1 million for what, Nicole?
You know that we're putting some of our reserve into that account. I can't remember what kind of account, and it gets interest, and it's fairly.
Oh yeah.
So
good.
we have received almost $119,000 of interest this year compared to $63,000 last year.
Wow.
So that's
Okay.
amazing.
So I bring that up as just another lever potentially. I don't know how you feel about that, Rita. I'd like to, just ask you directly.
Add more.
Yeah, I'd like to, I know like when we made that decision last year, it was like, okay, like we have this amount that we may be tapped out on that, and we just continue to let it accrue interest. But I just throw that out there as all these different levers we're trying to pull.
Wasn't it kind of fluid though? Like, couldn't we put it in and take it out if
Out of that one, yeah. Safe.
Yeah,
Out of one of the accounts. We just got to be careful, obviously, for budgeting that much, in reserves. I mean, we want to be careful that we have the funds available.
100%.
Yeah.
And so I have nothing attached to it.
Right.
It is just one of the levers that we have pulled in the past.
Question about that, since
Sure.
it wasn't here on the 24 or the last year's budget discussion. You said we have roughly 2.5 in there invested currently? Correct. And so that's some of the water and sewer funds are in there as well? Oh, yeah. Okay, because we don't have that much in reserves. So do we? Well, we have 5 million. Well, yeah, no, in the town, the general reserves, or the town reserves, we have 5 million total? Okay.
But not for the general
As a whole,
fund.
yes,
Yeah,
with
right.
the water, the
Yes.
sewer, and the town. But the water and sewer, we can't really touch
Right.
except for those projects. The town reserves are 1.3 million currently-ish.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Right. So if this budget has a $500,000 overrun, are we going to have to pull any of our funds out of
No.
CSAFE? Okay.
We do not.
I didn't know how much of that.
We do not. So currently, we have about 2.5 million in just checking and a couple of savings accounts that are excluding.
But we do keep that broken up by water, sewer, and general fund.
No.
Okay.
What are you getting at, Chris?
Well, I'm just concerned, water and sewer, they're enterprise funds, they're managed separately. We can't touch those funds to pay for police.
Right.
But I guess we don't have to track where we're keeping those funds.
You check our cash position though.
Right.
Of all the funds, so then you
Right.
know.
So we could basically say the cash we have on hand is all our general fund money, and we just have water and sewer there, if that's what we had to say.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so does that connect to anything regarding the CSAFE? Like, okay, so do you have any ideas or?
I just wanted to make sure that if we do approve a budget with significant overages, so
Sure.
hit that we not have to pull money out of CSAFE.
Oh,
But because of the way the money is tracked sort of in a fungible manner, obviously we won't.
Okay. So I throw that out there. It's just
No, good.
another thing. So.
No, it's a good thing. Tanya, you were up to any other, can you let us know? what you're thinking on
Yeah,
the
I just feel like
visitor
the
center?
visitor center feels like it should be its own discussion item. I wouldn't feel comfortable pulling the rug out from it tonight. But I do agree we can't just keep losing money on something. I feel like we could sublease it to somebody who could probably make it profitable and give them or we just lease it and a good deal, and then they have to have some of our propaganda there. I don't know. I think it needs to be discussed. All the different options for it in depthly, because it is a great space. It would be a shame to just have it be closed. We could actively start looking for somebody to run it and lease it from us. And so then it becomes their problem. But at the moment, I want to keep it in the budget, but I am not opposed to other possibilities. Seems like it's a really good location. There's always people milling around it. So then as far as the police, I mean, 50% is what we had budgeted, was it 2 years ago? And then Nicole and I brought it back or was it just last year? I can't remember.
It was just last year.
And really? God, it feels
Seems
forever
like a
ago.
lifetime ago, but yes.
Yeah, and I
we
know,
went
like,
with
we
good old
gave
option
quotes, like, let's
C.
break it higher, but we were all pretty comfortable with 50% at the time, and we came back as a motion to reconsider, I think. So I could be convinced to go 50%. I mean, it's unpopular. I can see that, but so there's that, and then yeah, obviously keep extra duty. Because in theory, it's supposed to make us money. It didn't really last year, but we'll see. And then Nikki's employee, and then maybe no to the skid steer. But I mean, if it's a vital piece of equipment for Parks to do its job, correct? So then what happens if we don't have that piece of equipment? That, they can't do their job or what? That I'm not really sure what it
They've been
does.
borrowing from streets, correct? You guys are all sharing the skid steer.
Josh or Andrew has one that could be used.
Yeah. So there is a backup. It's painful, right? And we try to want to put it into a plan to maybe, to put it on for next year or something, but we could get around it. And it sounded like the priority for Nikki was to have the employee rather than the equipment.
Sure. And whatever happened with all that electric equipment? Is that still in the budget? Is it in the budget right now?
Yes, we have the $3,500 of musts that are in the budget.
Gotcha.
We're going to be short on things, but we found out we can use our chainsaws for fire mitigation purposes. So that helps us a little bit for next year.
Oh, good. I mean, that's really what we use it for. So, so that's kind of where I'm at.
What are your thoughts on the DDA BOT work session?
Oh, yeah, I think we need it. I mean, yeah, I think we need it. I think, like, their budget, they put things like exactly like placeholders so that, most of the time, none of it gets spent, not all of it gets spent. So it's just there to have it available should like say we come up, the BOT says, hey, we need money for this or that as almost an emergency, then they can just, without doing a supplemental budget, can pull it out of a fund and then write a little resolution of something where it gets moved from one fund to another. And so I think it's good to have a bit in the budget for those purposes. And I think most of that isn't too frivolous. I know people think the beautification is, but at least half of that is for Nikki. So, but yeah, you could get it more itemized, and I think we could definitely get more clarification on the website and really on each of the line items. But that could probably be in a written piece of paper that we could read. Ask Kate to submit it before next week. And then, yeah, joint session, put it on the schedule. I don't want an extra meeting. It should be one of our meetings. So I think it could wait till after budget season, and we could just do it in lieu of a BOT meeting or in lieu of an NDDA meeting. But I really don't want extra meetings.
So I just wanted to clarify, and I'm not sure if Trustee Corwin was talking about the employees. That was budgeted at 10,000 for 2 summer employees. For if that's going under beautification, it's $10,000.
And then how much for trash cans, do you know?
We didn't do trash cans this year, did we, in 24?
Yeah. I think so.
Oh, for 25. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah. I
No.
mean, I think we could get like Kate to write this out more detailed.
Yeah.
That would be helpful.
Thanks, Tanya. Luke, you want to go next?
All right. Sheriff's Department. Yeah, in my opinion, the 50% coverage for 80% cost is not really a viable option in terms of our cost to coverage benefit. If we're willing to go 50% and try and offset that with extra duty, it makes more sense to keep the full coverage and add extra duty to offset the cost of full coverage. The value benefit there just doesn't make sense to me. And then what we really should be focusing on is a longer multi-year strategy to come up with a better solution. Like obviously we can't continue with the Sheriff's Department cost as it stands. So, but we're not going to solve that next year. And, we need to have, I think most people in the community are saying that the quality of coverage is not where we want it to be, but reducing coverage, I don't think is going to solve that problem. Visitor center. Yeah, I don't think we should close the visitor center even temporarily. I feel like that's kind of a downward spiral thing. Like people roll up to town and there's the shuttered visitor center. Like that sets a bad image for the town. Said I think we just need to be creative, as John was saying. Like how do we optimize our investment there? How do we make that the visitor center either generate better revenue, or how do we offset the cost with something else so that we're not losing money directly, or at least that if we are, we know what the intangible benefit is that we're getting out of it. And then I think we should also work with the NDDA on that, because I think they benefit a lot from the visitor center, or they could benefit a lot. And obviously, because they're a bunch of businesses, that they might have a better plan for staffing and optimizing the operations and the level of service there so that it actually does better. So, I think they're a strong ally for the visitor center. The Parks Department. Yeah, I mean, the other I mean, I hate to even call this a fourth position. I mean, we're just filling a position that was vacated. And so Nikki, has been pretty clear she needs that extra person for year-round coverage. So that's a full yes. Additionally, this during the summer is when Parks has their biggest need for manpower. I mean, we have a short window of time to get a lot of our parks work done. And I think that taking advantage of a volunteer program is pretty key there. Obviously, there's a lot to solve, but if we can get that solved before summertime, that volunteer man hours, I mean, both like brings the community together, but also offsets our budget a lot. So that's, anywhere we can take advantage of free labor, we should definitely be doing that. The skid steer, yeah, those are incredibly versatile tools, especially for what Parks needs. Does anybody know, I know Nikki's not here, does anybody know how many hours they put in on the one they're borrowing?
No, I know it has 150 total hours right now.
Okay.
Which is not a lot.
Yeah.
And I think someone else said I think the issue might be, and I haven't talked to Nikki about this, I think the issue might be not that the equipment's not available, because I think it is available. It's just where that piece of equipment's just the inconvenience of moving it around town might be the issue.
Right.
There.
And then, you guys have a trailer to move it around, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So it's just kind of like having somebody get it on the trailer and get it where it needs to be.
Yeah. I don't want to speak for Nikki. I just really haven't talked to her at all about it. But we don't put a ton of hours on our equipment.
Yeah. So I mean, if that's an option to to just share, then that's great. And then, but I do see that maybe tying into the electrical equipment replacement project, which Tanya, I'm glad you brought that up, because that was something I wanted to bring up as well. Snow blowers, I think, are one of the trickiest things to like run electric and have that do what we need them to do. But you can put a snowblower attachment on a skid steer and circumvent the electrical. It's no longer a small, small. It's not an appliance. What do you even call that? Like a
Attachment.
Handheld, motorized thing. But so maybe a skid steer like actually helps to solve some of those electric equipment things. One of the other things is I was trying to see what we might be able to do for Nikki with that is there's a lot of grants out there for replacing these, gas powered tools, but there are no grants available for municipalities, which is unfortunate. But again, in the vein of being creative, I think that if a private company were to buy the electric tools with grant support and then sell them to the town in exchange for the town's gas powered ones, because private entities aren't restricted by the same law to replace their equipment, they could take advantage of the gas powered equipment and the town could take advantage of the electrical equipment. We do a little swapsies if we could find a partner who'd be willing to do that with us. So yeah, I mean, this is kind of a vein of like, being creative. Last one, for utilities, this is just like my personal mission to be greener with all of our stuff. And I, emailed Andrew a while about this, but if we can find a way to not buy new generators and come up with a green or renewable option for those backup power sources, I would love to figure out a way that we can do that and offset our costs with grants or other, initiatives there for green funding. So those are my thoughts on budget right now.
Real quick, on Excel hooking up this whole battery thing behind the building here, is that something that could be utilized for more than just a community center, or what's the potential of that thing?
Yes, this generator here is big enough to run the entire neighborhood, and that battery backup will just give it more resiliency. It's a very small microgrid, but that's what it was intended to do. There's other opportunities to do more of that in the town. That microgrid is supposed to be hooked up pretty much any day now, I think. I think we're just waiting on the final approval, so.
Yeah, and a quick bit of research on that stuff, like, you know, if you put your power source, whether that's solar panels or batteries, you know, in their sort of optimum location, you know, your biggest issue is transporting that power to where you need it. But that super heavy duty cable, I mean, it's expensive, but it's cheaper than buying another generator, you know, like, or another power source. So like we might, might be able to like run some buried cable and get power from me. So.
Thanks for thinking outside the box. Ty?
As far as police go, I mean, I personally don't feel like we're getting as good a coverage as we could, but I am hesitant to go to 50%. As far as the visitor center goes, I'm open to closing it for a year, but I would much rather like to see us work with the NDDA and try to figure that out a little bit better. Like Luke said, they're all business people in town. You know, maybe they have a better grasp for that kind of stuff. They can help us, you know, fill in gaps what we don't know how to fill. As far as Nikki's fourth employee, I'm all for that, because if you eliminate an employee and you have other employees like picking up that slack, that can cause frustration to them, feel like they're not getting paid their amount, and we could end up losing more employees because we don't have that fourth employee. And like she said herself, she'd rather have the employee than the skid steer. I personally want to wait on the skid steer and just work with the one that we have that, you know, that we share. What am I missing an opinion on? So much talking.
What was your decision on the PD? I mean, you said
100%.
100% extra duty or not?
Yeah,
additional extra duty.
Yeah, with additional extra duty. Yeah, I'm hesitant to go to 50.
Okay.
Like I said, I'm still struggle with feeling like they're doing as much coverage as they could. But I have no way to like quantify that. It's just my personal opinion. What am I missing? I know I'm missing something.
DDA, working with the DDA. Joint meeting?
About the visitor center?
No, no, just in general, just a joint meeting with them.
Oh yeah, no, I'm all for it. And I'm agreeing with Tanya. I don't want to add extra meetings to the amount of meetings we already have. You know, so if we could just replace one of theirs or one of ours, that would be. I'd be more interested in that.
Thanks.
Yep.
Chris.
There we go. Well, I mean, I would struggle, looking at the budgets we've been provided tonight, I would struggle to vote for any of them. Because obviously we've worked very diligently over the last decade to grow a reserve fund that would, and we did this consciously after the 2013 floods, because we saw what happened to Lions, and we saw that they basically burned through their entire reserve fund in the course of 2 weeks of the emergency. And pretty much the only reason they were able to keep going was because they had a good reserve fund. We then were immediately tested in 2016 with the Cold Springs fire. We burned through some of it then, but we bounced back. And then to see us doing it, burning through a significant chunk, 40% of our reserve fund here this year is disturbing. And I don't think it's particularly responsible for us to be voting for that. Particularly given that we've discussed a lot of the little pieces of that today. The visitor center, various, pieces of equipment which we know are necessary, but we're going to postpone, things like that. But obviously it's the police that is the elephant in the room, though they left. So certainly I would vote for the 50% because, like Luke said, we aren't getting particularly great coverage, but we're basically getting 50% coverage now, so it would be no change. So that saves us a fair amount of money. The additional service, extra duty, sure, that's great. That would help theoretically. I mean, we've seen it didn't quite pan out the way we'd hoped, so I would hate to put a lot of faith in that. And I think it's also just a little worrisome that, we start becoming reliant on tickets as a major source of our town funding. But, as a couple-year bridge thing, that would be fine. And I think I intimated this earlier, this idea I had of, well, because, if we were to go the 100% now, we can't do it next year. We don't have the reserves to keep growing this at this level. So one thing I had, or an idea I've been talking about and kicking around with people is going with the 50%, but using some of that savings over the 100% to start rebuilding our department. Let's use some of that. Let's go to 50%, but let's use it to hire a marshal next year. It takes time. We probably won't have to pay more than half a year of a salary, maybe 7-8 months of their salary, but we can use it to start rebuilding our department because we know we're going to have to do that. We can't keep going with the county. Let's get ahead of this. Let's say, all right, county, we're going to, do your 50%. You've got us over the barrel. We can't choose to not use you this year, but then actually set out to start rebuilding our department in 2025. And that will still then impact our reserves. It'll come down, but not quite as much. And we will be setting ourselves up for 2026 to not be having the same discussion. Visitor center. I think, I trust town hall to adjust and try and minimize the loss. I think the idea of, targeting just weekends, and I think you guys have a handle on that. We probably will still run at a loss this year, but it'll be much less than $40,000. The extra parks employee, I really agree with what Ty says about not putting the stress on the current employees by not doing it. Budgetary situation, so I think, we can hire them there. It's, unfortunately, we don't pay them very much anyway. Skid steer, share it. I mean, it's like 150 hours on it. It's going to get stored at the town shop anyway, so it's the moving around doesn't change whether it's owned by parks or owned by streets. I think that was it.
So were you saying 50% PD plus add extra duty or no?
Plus extra, I mean, we might as well throw that in there because according to your models, that is income plus.
Yes.
So let's keep that in there, but, keep the base cost of that contract as low as possible. And then we can start discussing as a supplemental budget item. Let's not put it in because we only have a week for you guys to deal with this, but a supplemental budget item in early 2025 to start the process of rebuilding. Because I know it's not just the marshal. It's the marshal. He needs a car. He needs equipment. He needs body cameras. There's a lot of pieces to it. Or sorry. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Nikki.
What'd you say? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
He, she.
Could be a she.
He or she or they.
Marshall.
Will need equipment, but that needs to be something we start on, and this is our chance to pull back a little bit of chance to do that. I did remember the last thing, DDA, we absolutely need a meeting with them, to start planning, to coordinate, because there's no coordination right now. And we need to really get on top of that bylaws thing and enforce their bylaws so that they don't slip things past us anymore.
So going back to your suggestion of going to 50%, but then starting to rebuild, if I recall from one of our previous meetings, that was something that was sort of happening at one point in Nederland history, and it was very hard to coordinate between, right?
Absolutely, it's going to be difficult, but it's going to be difficult whenever we do it, because we're not going to be able to go from 0 to a full department in a budget season.
Right.
So, having it as the marshal, that marshal then can actually start filling in gaps, start doing real community policing and becoming a member of the community next year. And probably during daytime hours. But that solves some of the 50% concerns that we have, but gets us a leg up on moving forward to something that's sustainable. And I have a lot of ideas on what we could do in terms of that sustainability piece of the department that's not just Nederland, but that's a much, much larger discussion than we can handle this month.
Mm-hmm. Were there any other concerns? Because I feel like we talked about that last week or last meeting or the meeting before. And it was around mostly around the coordination. And like you said, I agree. It'll be painful no matter what.
I thought it was a coordination across county boundaries. We talked about some county.
Like who has jurisdiction or who, right?
I mean, the marshal would always have jurisdiction in town.
In town.
And so does the county.
But for those things that are sort of just outside the boundaries,
then I think we always had in the past, when we had our own department, we had the mutual aid agreements where if something was happening in Westmag outside of town limits, we could go respond. We could sign that up again, or we could just say, you know what? No, our marshal is going to focus entirely on our town right now because that's what we need.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just a coordination piece. That's just negotiations with the county, the county sheriff.
Yeah, I agree with Chris Larson. Because we can't keep, next year we won't be able to do 100%, so we might as well slowly start thinking about, it was really difficult to hire a marshal. That's why we didn't succeed at it, but we should try again. It's another year has passed. There's new people out there looking for jobs. Maybe we'll find the person and we can we'll have that money that we're not spending. We should put it maybe in our budget. So like thinking, hey, we're going to spend it, but we're going to put it towards our own department again.
Anything else, Chris? Thanks, Tanya. Appreciate that. So yeah, I on the sheriff, just to look ahead, Chief Johnson told John, expect 120,000 a year. So I said this here, but in less than 8 years, we'd be paying $2 million a year just for law enforcement. If you just 8 times 120, so plus what we're paying, so it's unsustainable, and we all know that. And so this year, it is what it is. I've been for the 50% the whole time. I voted for it twice last year. I voted against the budget because of it last year and other things, and I'm still for it. But I know the public isn't, so it's a bit of a challenge. But from a budget point of view, I like the idea because I think really when we think even if we take a hit this year on the reserve, investing in the future, next a year from now, just like Tanya just said, the 100% pretty much won't even be possible unless some major changes. So starting to work on a marshal through the year and starting to work on a hybrid, I think is a good plan. With 50%, I don't like the extra duty, but it obviously potentially adds income. It didn't to the degree it was expected, but potentially it could. Extra duty traffic. I don't like I don't, and many people in the town don't like, and some people like the presence for sure, and others don't like being a speed trap town. So there's a balance there is what I'd like to strike. And that's kind of, so yeah, I'm more of a 50% plus extra duty. Begrudgingly plus extra duty. I'm more of a 50%. Well, I might as well save extra duty because it'd be 6-1. So, yeah. And the world kept spinning this year, so it definitely didn't totally go off the rails with that. It just really has moments where people didn't like it for sure. I'm all for keeping the visitor center closed. If you pause it, you close it. That's. I'm sorry, keeping it open because if you pause it, it's there's no unpausing it. It's just closed. So I think what I'd love to see, I think Tanya's ideas were really, really good about whether the NDDA could help with it, because a lot of the direction that happens in there and the businesses people go to are in the NDDA. And I love the idea of artists, potentially working without pay, as too many artists have to do anyways. But we're working there, but but staffing the place so that people could come in and they can answer questions as well, and hopefully use it as a warm and dry artistic space for themselves. So I like those two ideas. I also think Peter could. I don't want to talk. I don't want to get into like directing how staffing should happen, but I like the idea of Peter spending more time in the visitor center personally, as the staff, since he's already on what do you call it, salary. And the other thing is, like, it would be really good, in my opinion, that we start getting real numbers, like just tallying how many people come in. You can get, it can be super simple as just numbers. It could also be like, what did they just look around? Did they ask a question? It'd be nice to know, did they ask for direction in any way? Directions with the car, directions to a business, somewhere to go get coffee, whatever. I mean, I think someone said, yeah, the visitor center being closed when people drive into town would be a bad look for sure. So,
But it already is.
right, but it's not always closed, and it's a bad look when it's closed. I agree, but it's not always closed, and it still says visitor center on it, and it's still has the bathrooms and things we need, and those could still happen, but I think it needs to stay open. I don't think that money is a big enough loss, even though Tanya said something at the very beginning when we talked about, which is we could maybe sell better stuff. Like some of the stuff in there is just not super high quality, and maybe just isn't going off the shelves, and losing Frozen Dead Guy days is what it is, and that probably moved a lot more stuff through there. So that's where I'm at on those two things. But yeah, and I think Q1, John, you said earlier, like if we start taking numbers and really look at the visitor center, maybe in Q1 we could look at it at the end of Q1 or beginning of Q2 and say, all right, do we want to keep this rolling? How did it do through the winter? And like you said, you need to know before May because you might be hiring someone for the summer. So that's I like that idea as well. So parks employee, part of me was okay with, frankly, just taking Brian's, transfer from one department to another as an opportunity to downsize the department. It sounds like Nikki really wants that staff person. The skid steer, I definitely think can wait. Can keep sharing hopefully with the water, and right now that doesn't need to happen. So part of me would like to see the parks employee drop and just lose the position, but it seems like that's what's wanted. So to staff it, I like the idea I heard earlier about the NDDA really, and just a dedicated parks person that's focused on that part of town, and they help pay for it. I'm sure NDDA people who might be listening are probably getting sick of hearing us ask for things for the DDA to pay for, but this one kind of does seem logical. I also kind of looking into the future for sake of like downsizing or just better, more efficient use of, one reason we need the extra person too, I'd say in the winter, there was a lot of, my kids play hockey and my wife plays hockey, and there's a lot of negative feedback about how that rink went. And so that's got to improve. So whether it's the fourth person or the three people, just whatever technology or whatever systems need to be in place, there was pretty resounding chorus of bad feedback about the rink.
You mean in terms of what? Just the ice?
The state of the ice. Yeah. Obviously temperature, no one complained about that. You can't do anything about that. But just I think folks were learning how to, run the Zamboni and learning how to run the ice. And that, until we cover the thing, it's never going to have its potential. But for now, anything we can do to improve how we maintain the ice specifically, I think will go a long way with the community. And then the combination of the community center and the parks, it's not going to happen next year, but I think that is something we really need to be talking about next year. And I love this idea. And I think there could be some more efficiency in people and what people do and how many people we need to do it. if those were combined. So I really love that idea. The NDDA, I definitely want to schedule a work session with them soon, and I agree. I don't like more meetings either, so we will work hard to pick a scheduled meeting time of either BOT or NDDA and try to schedule at one of those times. And so I look forward to that because I think the priorities for just getting us in the room to talk about their numbers. Tanya made a good point. They have a lot of buffer in those numbers, and they look kind of like crazy. $75,000 or whatever, 70 on beautification. I'm not as against beautification. I kind of go back and forth on it, but the numbers look kind of crazy as standalone. So it'd be nice to see some more granularity in that. And I think being in the room with folks would help. And then, yeah, fixing their bylaws. There's quite a few things specifically I would like to see, enforced or clearer with the NDDA, and part of it would happen if we would just approve the bylaws. And C-Safe, would love to put money in it if we have it, but not if we don't. That's all I got right now.
So going back to C-Safe, because that has an opportunity to bring down a bit of that, that deficit. So you already have it sort of pre-budgeted that the 119, what we did for this year would carry over into next year, right?
It's a little less.
Are you talking to yeah.
So it's going to be a little less. We did meet with Bob from C-Safe in Krug, who was here last year. I think you guys met him. Anyway, he was predicting that the market, with the interest rate changing. So I reduced interest income a little bit.
Okay.
Based upon that meeting with him.
Okay.
But not significantly.
And so what are we talking about is the difference? If you have it off the top of your head, that's great. If not, then don't worry about it.
Okay.
So I come back to that because, okay, we have 5 million in general reserves, right? Or in reserves.
In reserves.
Just in reserves. Don't say
Yes.
general, don't say water, don't say sewer. In reserves. Of that 5 million, 2.5 has been allocated to C-Safe.
Yes.
Okay. So realistically, if we were to put, let's say, another million, just hypothetically, another million, that would potentially net us back maybe 65, another 60. Okay. So 1.5 would potentially be an additional 90, almost 100,000, like 90 to 100,000. Okay. So just some back of this napkin math for everyone, just real quick. Okay. Chris, your suggestion, even if we were to go to 50%, we still have to hire a sergeant. We're not saving a whole lot right there in terms of hire a marshal. We're not really saving anything. It's more of the intention of strategy and building forward. Okay. However, if we do the extra duty, conservatively, we'll say 50,000 as a net back into the deficit. Visitor center, if the NDDA were able to pick it up, it's another 45,000. That's 100,000. The full-time employee is 68,000 if NDDA is able to help with that. So we're at 168,000. If we then say, hey, C-Safe, let's go ahead and throw in another 1.5, just hypothetical. It's another 100,000 potentially. So now what we've reduced is 268 to the deficit. Is that resounding with you, Rita, because you are the numbers person?
So the interest, the C-Safe, is divvied up between all the funds. It's not just a general fund, just so you understand.
Okay.
And I wouldn't be able to give you a number right now on what you were just calculating, how much of that would be in the general fund. But yes, just so you know, it's not all in the general fund.
Is it? Yeah. How is it proportionated? That's not even a word. What the hell? Proportion. You liked it? Okay. You know what? I think if you're on the BOT, you can make up words. Proportionated.
So, well, we budgeted 34,000 of interest in the general fund.
For 2025?
Yep.
And that's with 2.5 in there.
That's with 2.5 in there.
Yep.
So put another 1.5, that's.
So it's another,
20,000.
So it's
Yeah.
only a 20,000.
Yeah, 1,000.
Dang it. But is there any, I mean, because it is pretty fluid, is there any like risk
Like you
or
have,
loss? I mean, because what, how much warning do we have to give them to pull it back out?
it depends,
if
there's
we-
two different funds we have invested in, so
Right.
that would be determined, one of them is like 6 months and the other one is no problem.
Yeah, I remember there was one that was
Yeah.
totally
on
fluid.
demand. Yeah,
Right.
it was more liquid. Okay, so it doesn't necessarily give us,
Not in the general fund, but
right, but even if it goes back to, water, I don't know that really helps us. What I was trying to get was having
Right,
it go
right.
back to the general fund.
yeah.
Right. Not necessarily helping us right now. Okay, however, all right, I guess that would be 20,000, not my 100,000, but it comes down to 168, 200,000 essentially. Let's say we're only, around 200,000, that would be so we'd go from 558, 565 to 365. Okay.
Much better.
Just to be clear, that's no new parks employee. That's having the DDA taking over the parks employee, the visitor center, it has assumptions.
Yeah.
It has
And
assumptions.
if the DDA chooses not to, then it's closing the visitor center and not hiring the employee.
So John, you want to say something?
Yeah. I think it's really important to think about the fact that this could be the beginning of a fiscal crisis. It could also be a short-term problem. And when you think about that, I think what's really important to remember is that we don't want to delete the town if it's a short-term crisis, because it's going to be really difficult to fix it. I would really like to have a full tool set next year to address these problems. And I'm feeling like there's a decision point here where there's three really important things. One is Rita and I can cut this budget further, and I would really like to give you a recommendation of how I would like to do that so that I can be effective next year, because I'm really nervous about not having what I need to make this work. That's one thing I wanted to say. We have a budget hearing on the 19th, and that's, there's a lot of reasons why we tried to get everything done by the 3rd, because the last meeting is right before Christmas, and last year you guys went over the deadline, and that's not a good look 2 years in a row with Department of Local Affairs and everything. So I think that's something critical too. This budget is it's a huge deficit. I don't think we should discount that. And honestly, the honest truth of it is 60 to 70% of that is because of the PD contract and the fact that it's unsustainable. We look at our community center fund, you look at the water wastewater funds, everything is kind of working. Deficit spending is not necessarily a bad thing. We have money so that we can use it for the right things. Like you said, Chris, I think it's really important to think about saving those and being responsible with those reserves. We have some positive economic activity that should happen next year that should address this. If we're able to build this managed parking program the way that it should be run, I think there's a potential that could really eat into this as well. So I guess what I'm asking is two questions. One, should we have the budgetary hearing on the 19th? Because we really need to bring you a final budget for that, and I'm not 100% sure you're ready for that. And two, if we are going to reconsider this, would you give Rita and I the chance to make cuts here that could be meaningful? I mean, we could get back to 0 on deficit, probably. It's going to mean a lot. Or, like some percentage, but I'm just, yeah.
Historically, we don't end up with a 0 budget.
Right.
Right. Like we budget.
I mean, I'm like trying to get under 200,000
Yeah,
as a
I-
deficit,
yeah,
and
zero-
that's good.
Might be taking away your toolkit.
And that's why I was doing that math. It's like, if I can get to 200,000, feel much better about that.
But I think to your point, if you make the cuts and say where it is so you can preserve your toolkit, instead of us saying it's a parks employee, it's a skid steer, it's the visitor center, you might have a better idea what the toolkit you need next year is. Maybe the visitor center can be a key component of it, depending on how things are. So I would like to see what your take in terms of the sort of a bare bones budget to give you the tools. But, obviously the police being the largest piece of what we have to deal with.
Yeah, I agree. I think that is a good plan. I mean, because you're right. There's things in the hopper. I mean, Rasham's Mountain, there's a restaurant about to open this month. The bank is about to open, is likely to open next year with businesses, plural, in it. So there's things that are going to start generating revenue that aren't yet, don't exist presently. So, yeah, to start deleting a bunch of stuff, then all of a sudden it might be harder to rebuild it. So yeah, but you should be making those decisions. Like I'm saying here, we're making specific statements about staffing. That's really not our place anyway. So you should really be.
But it is our place.
Well, I
We're
know
having-
more like Peter should be at the visitor center, and I said that myself, so I'm guilty. But right, ultimately the numbers are, but I think Jonathan should make those decisions and bring it to us.
I guess my big question is, we can't bring a lot of alternatives to you in a budget hearing. That's just not how it works. So if we're not ready to have the hearing on the 19th, we need to really think about that, and we really need to have it on the last meeting before Christmas holiday, which is something we were trying to avoid.
We couldn't have it on the 3rd?
We not at this point, because we have to have the hearing and then it has to be adopted at the next meeting.
Oh, okay, yeah, no, that's fine.
So we could potentially delay it, have the hearing on the 3rd, and then have the meeting on
That's what I meant. Yeah, and pass the budget on the 17th.
Yeah, and that would give you one more day. We could answer these questions for you and come back with an alternative budget that comes to a level of more cut that you're comfortable with as a board that you feel, and we can answer this DDA question as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then just on the DDA, I'm glad, talking to Andrew, is this work session is something, especially with Cheney, this happening in January is fine, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's not like a December must.
I think that'd be fine.
Great.
And if you're going back to kind of start the budget again, sorry, Rita. Are you going to continue to carry the 100%, 50% option, or have you guys gotten a direction from the board tonight to go in one way or the other?
I don't know. I think we were kind of
We're pretty
split.
That's
Pretty
kind of what I was trying to, I just wanted to make sure that captured.
I wouldn't hate direction on that point if you guys could give it.
Can I ask a question, John? Did you, in your talks with the sheriff's office, have you ever floated that idea of us hiring a marshal and going down to 50%? And would they be able to?
The sheriff floated that
coordinate?
idea to me.
Okay.
So I think it's something that's in there.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the sheriff, I think on some level, and not in a bad way, I think they want to serve us, but they're kind of trying to get fired because they know we can't
It's tough for them
ultimately pay them, and they really need their deputies elsewhere, and it's very tough for them now. They're having a rough time. So I think if we could become our own marshal, our own entity again, they'd be happier with that.
But
in the long
that's not something we can pull off for next year.
No,
right?
no,
Like,
no,
that's-
no,
yeah,
no.
I mean, we just
Not
need
2025, we're definitely
yeah,
with them. It's just
I
a
mean, that's,
matter
I
of
mean, a little bit we just need to bite the bullet this next year, which is why that
like John
number-
said,
why that
this
number is so big.
this may not be the beginning of a financial or whatever crisis, but budget breakdown, but it's really could just be a hard blip. But
Yeah.
and the biggest thing that's killing us is the sheriff's cost.
But to be clear, we have to give them 6 months. I know they said that they were flexible, but if we go to 50%, we do need to start the process of hiring a marshal.
Yeah, but we're not going to have a marshal on. I mean, we're not going to have somebody.
For 2025, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, no, that was
That
my
is
idea.
it.
We
Hopefully.
make the decision, or my proposal is we make the decision to go to 50% for the budget, and so you guys can actually come up with something that we can pass.
Yeah.
But with the intention that in, first couple meetings in January, we're already looking at a supplemental budget where you can come back with us the numbers to say, okay, now let's start the hiring process for the marshal.
And it will take 6 months.
Because it'll take months. There's going to be the equipment stuff. There's all those pieces that have to come together. And that's why I don't want us to try and wedge that in the next week and a half.
No. I
Just
agree.
to let you know, Rita and I are a little concerned about the insurance cost of the department. So that's one thing we just need to really be careful
Okay,
about.
so that's a great point, and I think that's where we need a couple of those scenarios,
Yep.
because if the insurance and the cost of everything is higher, right, than the 1 million that we were going to pay for sheriff's department, then that's something that we would need to know. And it's like, maybe we don't do it for 2025 and we plan for 2026 to then operate at, the 50% and hiring the marshal. And so if that insurance is a key factor.
Because I assume that's still through CIRSA.
It is.
And just finding out from CIRSA what the bump would be for having marshal.
Yeah.
One good thing, we do have a bunch of rifles and handguns. So
Sweet.
Don't sell them yet.
We can do this, guys.
That vest
Citizens on patrol.
That vest is made for me, by the way. I got measured for it and everything.
I have a bow, a hunting bow.
I
could
think we
use
have a
that.
marshal candidate.
Yes.
I just have one follow-up question. If I reschedule the budget hearing for the 3rd and we have that meeting, the second meeting in December, that would allow us on the 19th to have another follow-up meeting to this, and we can address all of these questions for you. If we do that, is there a level, you kind of note, said maybe under $200,000 on a deficit? Is that the target that we would want to have, or is there another target?
I'd say under 3, personally.
Okay.
I mean, it's about where we were last year, right?
We were, what's it say?
190.
I
We were
I wanna
below,
s-
we got below 200 last year?
Yeah,
Okay, that's better.
well, I let Rita be the numbers person, but
Yeah, but
that's-
it wasn't real, right? I mean,
Well, historically, we budget
it
in
was-
the red.
it was
and we come out in the
190,
black.
Billy.
Is it 190? Okay, so it was
Yeah.
below.
yeah, but,
So we-
but did we actually meet that? Because I feel like a lot of things were because of like the parking that we never did or the extra duty that never materialized.
Well,
That's what
That is
the
correct.
budget.
We've taken out,
I don't want to have just fluff stuff so that we can sign something and feel good about it. And I know John doesn't either. So this, hopefully what we'll get in the next couple of weeks will be something real.
Trustee Larson made the same point at our last meeting, and I think that Rita and I really worked really hard. That's why you see the visitors numbers, center numbers the way they are. We really tried to really address that issue, but we can continue to hone it now that we have that direction. So if we get under 200, we get at A. If we get under 300, we're at a B. It's kind of what
I
I'm
would say
hearing.
a C if you're under 300. No, I'm
Okay.
just
You
kidding.
know,
I'm just totally
honestly,
joking.
I mean, I just think we're not in the same situation we were last year, so I think 300 is fine personally, and try to go below 200.
Okay.
you know?
I think that I think there's a path to 200. And so, you'll probably say, okay, well, these are your options. Here's at 250 and here's at 200. And these are the trade-offs that you have to make. I think that is a helpful conversation.
Thank you for allowing us a little bit of extra time. It's going to be a little stressful, but at the end of the day, I think we're going to have a better budget for it. So
Thanks for asking for it. Yeah, the time. And yeah, please bring those back to discuss next week. Next week's the 19th. Do you need any other? The 19th is next week.
yeah, it is a fast turnaround this time because we had the second. We missed last week's meeting. We still have a lot of work to do in a short period of time.
Well, you got 3 weeks to go, and you got 3 weeks to go till the hearing. No, wait. Yeah, till the hearing.
Right. Well, what we'll try to do at the next work session or the next regular session or meeting of the discussion is we will try to answer these questions and we will come up with a alternative budget that has some deeper cuts.
Yeah, it might be good. I mean, the options for the police department, I think would be nice to see those. Figure out CIRSA and all that.
Yeah. And DDA is meeting tomorrow, so we can hopefully get across some of that stuff too.
Good. Perfect. Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks. Anything else you need from us on the budget before we go to? Okay.
Just one last question, just because you brought up the parking thing. Is that something that's worth putting into the budget as far as?
It's in there. I would really like to bring a work set, or maybe I say work session, but I really mean discussion item back to you to reevaluate the program so I can make it work the way it needs to. I think it was set up pretty good, but we need to put a little context in there and I can make it, we can build a really good program that doesn't affect any resident or employee and still generates enough money to significantly modify this deficit.
Cool.
And just as a caveat, it's a pilot, right? This initial pilot. So what you have in there is revenue from the pilot or revenue from the overall program
Correct.
for the
The
year?
pilot is what's in
Okay.
there right now, but
Okay.
the contract as contemplated, you need to still look at it.
Yeah.
But it's designed to auto renew if you want it to. So you can
Yep.
give notice and cancel it, or it can just renew. So we need to
Got
bring
it.
that forward. I have modified the contract and I would like to bring that forward to you soon as well so that we can get that done.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. With that, any public comment on non-agenda items? There's no one in the room, so anyone online, if you have a public comment on the non-agenda item, just raise your hand or start talking. There's only one person who I don't recognize. So. Hearing none, any other business? Okay, anyone might want to make a random motion?
Motion to adjourn.
I move to motion for white rabbits and meetings from going forward.
That is a random,
Okay,
a good
you
random
asked for
motion. I
random.
second it. Motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Approved.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, me. I
Macy?
mean, yes.
I got a second. I heard the word.
Mayor Billy,
Yes.
Trustee Miller,
Yes.
Trustee Corvalon,
Yes.
Trustee Ty,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Sterling,
Yes.
Trustee Maris,
Yes.
and Trustee Larson. Yes. Okay, the meeting is adjourned at 9:46 p.m.
Thanks, Tanya.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys. Good night.
Good night.
You're right. Yeah, and like, I mean, I. All right, tickets, I can say that. Yeah.